Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. We are here on this Thursday. The offseason rolls on for the Seattle Seahawks. We still got some playoff stuff going on. We still got 4 teams alive as they chase a Super Bowl. But for the Seattle Seahawks side of things, we're just thinking about this upcoming offseason. I'm Brendan. That is Brandon. We're going to talk about some offseason stuff today. Brandon, how are you?
Doing well, man. Thank you.
All right. Good to hear. Good to hear. So, today is going to be a show all about the outgoing free agents for the Seattle Seahawks, because last week we did a show where we talked about the salary cap, we talked about cuts, we talked about extensions, we talked about restructuring, and we pretty quickly found out that it's not going to be that hard to create some cap space for this team, right? You can create probably $70 million in cap space, and it's not even that hard.
Absolutely. You can create whatever you want to do and get it done, whatever you want to do if you want to push down the pedal to the metal. So it's just about what they want to do from a motivation standpoint.
Right. So now with this show, we're going to start talking about the ways in which we can utilize said cap space to retain players, extend players. Down the line, we might get into guys that we can bring in from the outside. Never been a favorite thing of the Seahawks to do, but there are definitely going to be some conversations we have to have about these outgoing free agents, players that were on the team last year that may or may not be on the team this year. So that's going to be the main subject of today's show. Real quick, though, before we get into that, we do have a little bit going on with this offensive coordinator stuff. We have still not made a hire. Some of the pieces across the NFL are starting to fall into place, though. Like Josh McDaniels just got the New England job, which was anticipated. So that's another spot that's been cleared up. Ben Johnson goes to Chicago. He's expected to take some of his guys from Detroit with him. We don't know exactly who yet. But as we're waiting for all this stuff to fall into place here, I guess the main news we have right now is that there's some possibility in Seattle of a co-offensive coordinator situation. We have one guy as the OC, like a Hank Fraley, but then you have somebody like a Scott Turner as a passing game coordinator that has a lot of power. So how do you feel about that, Brandon? How do you feel about that possibility?
I think that there's too many cooks in the kitchen at that point. I think that it's just like having 2 quarterbacks on your team, where if you have 2, you have none. So no, I don't think it's a smart move.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to me, it would be the other way around, if anything, because Scott Turner's the guy who's called plays before. He's been an offensive coordinator before. If anything, I want Scott Turner as the OC and then somebody like Fraley as the running game coordinator. To me, it's kind of backwards to say, hey, we're going to have the guy who's never called plays call plays, and then the guy who actually called plays is just the passing game coordinator.
Yeah, I just don't think there's no situation like in the NFL. So it's Seattle just so brilliant that they're onto something that 31 NFL teams has not occurred to them to do. I don't think so. It feels more like they just can't seem to make a determination about the actual guy that they want to hire for the job. So they're trying to kind of hedge their bets, which is something John definitely likes to do in a lot of other ways. So I'm not surprised potentially to see him do it on this, but I don't see how it works when you don't see it working or being tried anywhere else. This is a little bit like last year, where you went out and decided to be the only NFL team that's going to go take a coordinator from the college level and bring him up to the pro level and expected it would work, and it fell flat on its face. So it's one of those things to me that would seem to have a lot of pitfalls to it in trying to go make this move. I don't see any intelligence behind it myself.
Yeah. Belichick tried to do it a couple years ago, and it was a complete disaster. That's the most recent example I can think of having like co-OCs. And just thinking about it theoretically, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like trying to have co-emperors or something. It doesn't make sense.
It just doesn't make sense. That's what it comes down to for me too.
Right. But as of right now, I think the information we have is basically Hank Fraley, Clint Kubiak, and Grant Udinsky are the guys we like. Maybe we're waiting for somebody from one of the 4 teams still in, but it seems like it's going to be one of those 3 guys. So hopefully.
Yep.
I'm still hopeful for Kubiak personally. That's my favorite.
That would be mine too. I hope that that's the one that they go with, but hard to tell. They definitely are taking their sweet time.
Mm-hmm. The good news is most of the candidates that I wanted are not the guys who are getting snatched up. So at the very least, there are still options available. Like I didn't want Josh McDaniels. I didn't want the guy that what was it? The Jets hired. I I I I can't remember if the Jets actually made a hire or not. But the options that I wanted and that we seemed interested in remain open at least.
Yep, I'd feel the same way.
All right, so that's really all we have. That's it in terms of news. So I say we just go ahead and jump right into these outgoing free agents.
Let's do it.
And what we're going to do, we're just going to go in order from which players made the most money on their previous contract in terms of average annual value to the least amount of money. So no real meaning to the order other than just the math. Let's see here. So I set up some banners so that way it'll be a little bit easier for everyone to see what we're talking about. So outgoing free agent number one. This is the one guy who was on a non-trivial contract for the Seahawks this last year that is outgoing. Jarran Reed. Jarran Reed coming off a 2-year, $9 million deal with the Seahawks that I would say he outperformed. I would say he earned that money and maybe even a little bit more than that. But now he's a free agent. He's getting older. I think he's 32 years old. So what's your position on Jarran Reed as a Seahawk in 2025?
We brought him back theoretically to supposedly be 2 years ago, the nose tackle in the role, and to slide back in that position that he was in college. He has not done that over the last 2 years. He's had a successful time in the respect of rushing the passer and doing that, but he's more leaned into doing the three-tech stuff that he's always typically done. He's got very few snap alignments that are in a nose tackle position. Right now, what we need is a nose tackle more than we need a three-tech, especially a three-tech that we're going to be spending pretty decent money on. I just estimate you're going to be spending more than the 2 years, $9 million to try to retain him at this point, given that he's come off 2 successful years as he has. And so if you want to put a logjam in front of Byron Murphy even further, then sign Jarran Reed to a contract extension, because that's exactly what it'll do, and you'll end up with Byron Murphy back in the nose tackle position.
Right. I feel like Mike McDonald wants a bigger guy at nose tackle. That's just my guess. I don't have anything super solid to base that off of, but I think
But I mean, he went with Byron Murphy at 295 pounds. Reed outweighs him by 20 pounds.
Yeah, but I don't think he wants Murphy at nose tackle. I think he's just putting him there because that's the option he has. Like in Baltimore, wasn't Michael Pierce like 340 or something?
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Yeah, so I don't know if Jarran Reed fits that. If you want to bring him back as like depth, and I guess there is a scenario where nobody really wants him because he's older. Maybe you could get him for like, 1 year, $3 million or something, and he's just going to fill that depth role. That's okay, but pretty indifferent on this one personally. I think that we already have enough going on at that 3-tech spot, and if you're not going to play him at nose tackle, there's probably just not enough snaps for him.
Yep, that's my feeling on it as well.
Yeah, so I'd go up to like 1 year, $3 million, and I don't think that gets it done. So thank you, Jarran Reed. You were great here. I love you, but gotta do something else.
Yep.
All right, so that's number one. Number two, we have another outgoing free agent, Pharaoh Brown. Pharaoh Brown outgoing after spending 1 year, making $3.2 million with the Seahawks in 2024. Any interest in bringing him back in 2025?
No, he was supposed to come in and be a really good blocker, and he wasn't a good blocker. That's the bottom line on it there. So the thing that you bought for the specified skill you bought to bring him in to execute, he was not able to execute it. So I don't think I want to sign him onto a contract extension.
Yeah. It was it's 3.2 million, but I don't think you can say that he earned that money. I don't think you can say that. I think that he was worth not even the veteran minimum. He wasn't a good pass catcher. He wasn't a good playmaker. He didn't block well. I just kind of feel like I wouldn't take him back almost for free. I don't know what the point would be. We just didn't get anything.
Nope, me neither.
So no interest whatsoever. Definitely going to let Pharaoh Brown go. Next guy. And by the way, one recurring theme on this show is going to be a lot of guys that are going to be pretty binary decisions. A lot of these guys are just like, just nothing much. And I'd say this next guy is unfortunately probably the case as well. We've got Jonathan Hankins, signed a 1 year, $2.1 million contract with the Seattle Seahawks last offseason. Any chance you bring back the big boy here?
No, he had one game against Miami where he was good, but absent that Miami game, he was a negative for us out there. And a lot of times we had run game woes. He was at the centerpiece as to why, not centerpiece, but one of the contributing factors as to why you couldn't stop the run. So I don't see any reason to bring back Jonathan Hankins. Like Farrell Brown, he gave you nothing.
Yeah, he's just big. At this point, that's all he is. He's just big. He doesn't really have any ability to make any plays. He doesn't really have the ability to get in there. You got to find somebody like a Jonathan Hankins, but it's got to be something more than a Jonathan Hankins. It's probably somebody in the draft because I actually like the nose tackles in this draft, but Hankins out of gas, just plain out of gas.
Yes, sir.
All right, number 4, we got Kayvon Wallace. Kayvon Wallace, outgoing free agent, made 1 year, $1.5 million on his last contract. Got hurt, didn't play a ton, was like the 4th safety by the end of the year, never made it back off IR. What are we doing with Kayvon Wallace here?
Didn't provide really any impact to your team at all. So I don't think there's any reason to want to bring him back in there. He didn't give you anything. It's like a couple of these other guys. He literally was a nothing burger as far as his performance on the football field.
Right. So no amount of money really makes me want to bring him back. No interest whatsoever. So that's just going to be a hard pass for me as well.
Yeah.
Go get a safety in UDFA. It won't be a big difference. Number 5, this one I think most people have forgotten was on the team last year for good reason. Trevis Gibson, 1 year, $1.3 million. Any interest whatsoever in retaining him in Seattle?
Nope. You brought him in and you wanted him to be your power edge. You made the trade and flopped Taylor out for him to be in that role. He was not able to suit it. He was bad in that role, bad player. This is the reason you had to go make a Roy Robertson Harris trade in October afterwards. So let him walk.
Right. No amount of money would make me intrigued here. Maybe you bring him back on the practice squad for $150,000 or whatever the practice squad salary is, but in terms of him actually making the roster, does not need to happen.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay, this next one might be a little more interesting. I know there's going to be at least some people maybe defending this one, at least want to have a conversation about it. Laken Tomlinson was on a 1 year, $1.2 million deal last year. I think he actually made some bonuses because he played the whole year. But he's a free agent now, 1 year older, but he's coming off a season that wasn't atrocious. It just wasn't good. What are we doing with Laken Tomlinson? Do you think Laken Tomlinson has any value to this team in 2025?
No, I don't. I think when you get the incentives all put through at the end of the day, Evan Brown performed better at left guard for the Arizona Cardinals than Laken Tomlinson did for us at left guard, and they spent less cumulatively on Evan Brown than we're going to spend on Laken Tomlinson. It's part of our problem is that we just can't ever seem to find value signings anywhere. And he's another representation of that. At the end of the road, doesn't have any mobility. The pressures from the inside last year that were at an insane level partly were contributed to him and by him. I don't think that he brings a lot to the table at this point in his career. He's at the end of the road.
Yeah. And if we bring back Laken Tomlinson, I'm going to be very concerned about the way in which this offseason is being approached by the front office. Like, it's not that he's not worth $1 million. I'm sure he's worth a 1 year, $1.3 million contract or whatever. But I just don't want to go down this road again. Even if he's technically worth that money, I don't want us to be tempted into thinking, yeah, Laken Tomlinson can gut it out for another year at left guard and it's okay. I don't want to even entertain that.
No, you had one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and he was a big contributing factor to that. So, if you want to pay $1 million, you can go cheap. John likes to go cheap on the offensive line. It's one of the things he most loves to do. Maybe he'll do it again, but it doesn't mean it's going to work. It's going to very much likely fail like it did this year for the most part. And that's going to mean your quarterback's going to be under a lot more duress and probably gets broken again like he has the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no interest whatsoever there. Probably should retire, honestly. I mean, I know he's still healthy, but he's got nothing left. Come on, man. Good career.
It's been a good run. Yeah, it's been a good run.
All right, number seven, we got Artie Burns. Artie Burns made 1 year, $1.2 million on his last contract with the Seattle Seahawks. Didn't play a lot. He got hurt, and there was a ton of depth in front of him. At the end of the year, got out there a little bit. What do we do with Artie Burns, Brandon?
I like Artie Burns as a player, especially as a vet signing that you could have on the practice squad that you kind of keep around. The problem is that he's just been injured multiple times over the past couple of years, and he can't stay healthy. And if you're going to have a guy like this, I need to be able to call upon him and rely on him that, hey, we're not going to put you as the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4. You're going to be our 5th cornerback. But when I call upon you, be it in the slot or on the outside, I need you to be available and healthy for that. And he's just not. And so I would move on this one too as well and look a different route.
Yeah, I'm pretty. If we bring him back on the veteran minimum, I'm not going to be unhappy about it. But this might be a good time to go young. I mean, Artie Burns has been in the league for a decade now. He's actually old. I didn't realize how old he was until I looked it up, but he's been around a while.
Yeah, he's had a long career.
So that's Artie Burns. This next one is the most interesting one. This is definitely going to be the most compelling outgoing free agent for the Seahawks. This one we might take a minute on. Number 8, Ernest Jones, the 4th. Was on a 4-year, $4.8 million contract. Was the rookie deal, by the way, of course, so it's a rookie scale salary. There's a lot to talk about with Ernest Jones. So do you want him back? What kind of money do you think it's going to take? Talk me through this. Let's talk through this one.
Yeah, I would like him back. I'm not going to break the bank to bring him back, though. I'm not giving him a Fred Warner, Tremaine Edmonds. I don't even know if I really be willing to give him a Patrick Queen contract, to be honest with you. And when I looked at the sports track and I was looking at the contracts given out to inside linebackers, 3 years, $30 million is what basically top end linebackers in the inside are going to make, with the exception of those outliers I just mentioned up at the top, be it Roquan Smith, Fred Warner, Tremaine Edmonds, Patrick Queen. Everybody else is right around $10 million a year that are in that place that I think Ernest is at. I don't think he's Roquan Smith. I don't think he's Fred Warner. But, is he Aziz Al-Shari, Zaire Franklin? Is he kind of more into that range of things, in my opinion, as far as an inside linebacker goes? Yes, he is. So would I give him a little bit more than, let's say, if it's a 4-year deal and you did 40 million or a couple of million more past the 40 million mark to make it work, I'll go maybe a little bit beyond that. But I'm not going much higher past the 10 million a year mark on this because there's some good inside linebackers in this draft, and there is some stuff in his game that's not perfect. So, you're paying him that price. There is going to be some limitations with him in coverage as a player, but this is as much about, look, the market is where it's at as far as inside linebackers go. And it just isn't smart to be one of those teams breaking the bank unless you really have a Roquan Smith, a real game changer kind of player from the position.
Yeah, I think I'd go to 3 years, 35 or something, because I know the cap keeps going up and the market keeps going up, but that's about it for me. To me, Ernest Jones is about as good as you can be with a 4.65 40 time, right? He's a slower player. He doesn't move the way some of these other players move, but he's about as good can be for a player that is as slow as he is.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
I'd go maybe 3 years, 36 even would be whatever to me. Past that, I think you're getting into territory now where you don't want to be, where the rest of the league is figured out. You don't need to pay linebackers big money. You just need to have decent ones. I think the Chiefs get good inside linebacker play, and they just kind of keep cycling through rookie deals with
Right.
Bolton and Willie Gay, I think, was on the rookie deal, and they
Leo
got that
Chanel.
other guy now, Leo Chanel. That's kind of what you want to emulate, right? You want to emulate the Chiefs.
Yeah, because especially inside linebackers tend to be plug and play players as well, don't they? Now, obviously, there's ones that aren't. If you're not talented or good, that's a different scale of it. But if you want to go out there and look at a guy like you liked, remind me of the name, the Packers inside linebacker,
Edgerrin Cooper.
So Edgerrin Cooper went out there. He was your 3rd highest inside rated linebacker by PFF this last year. And so that guy in his first year came out there, and that was a guy that we saw had some raw edges to him coming out. It wasn't like he was a finished product coming off the scene. And so Peyton Wilson out there with the Steelers gave him a really good inside, probably a top 10 inside linebacker-like season for them as a rookie as well. So you can, to your point, get plug and play players in that area of the draft, which is all the more reason that there's less push to then break the bank for one of these guys, especially if it's a guy who's not all the way full rounded, if there is some limitations to their game.
Right. And what did Patrick Queen get? He got 3 years, 41, I think.
So it's kinky. He's 341, right? So I'm with you on the 336 is where you'd really like to be. I know it's only 5 million more, but it just doesn't feel as right when you talk about getting him up into 341 or 342, which is probably why they
Yeah.
don't have a deal done right now between Jones and the Seahawks people, is that they probably want to get it to where we're talking about. And his people probably want to get it more up into, let's beat the Patrick Queen deal. I don't want to beat the Patrick Queen deal. I don't want to go up that high.
Right. I think that I am inclined to agree on that. I like him. He's a good player. He was great when he was here, absolutely. But at the end of the day, you got to make smart decisions, and there are some positions you just don't give big money to, unless it's Roquan, unless it's a Ray Lewis level player. You just don't.
Yeah. You want to make sure you're paying for how you spend your money and spending appropriately, especially when the cap is a little limited. I know we can create space, but you want to be certain about where you're making the expenditures, and it's not good to overpay players at any time. That's not the road to getting to contention.
Yeah. Are you confident that 336 gets it done, or do you think somebody else outbids? Like if you had to make a guess.
Uh, I think he probably beats the Patrick Queen contract because of the yearly inflation thing and next man up. I don't know that John's willing to do that deal. But I think that they probably get a deal done. If I'm making a prediction, there's probably a deal that ends up finding some way to get done, but it's probably going to be another 25th hour thing like the Leonard Williams thing and the Noah Fant thing was, and you're going to have to kind of come to a middle ground on that, I think.
Yeah, it is worth noting no income tax. That's going to help out, right? If even like I don't know, just hypothetically, the Chargers wants to sign him.
Excuse me. Sorry, my bad, man.
You're good. But if a team like the Chargers wants to sign him, that's very different, right? Because the income tax means even like if he gets 3 years, 50, that's not radically better than the 3 for 36 in Seattle. So maybe that'll help.
Could be. That could be enough to push it over where you got a little bit of an inroad on that versus what other teams could be out there offering. Is there a team out there offering? I mean, the inside linebackers are also one that aren't well paid. So we're talking about, is there a team out there that's looking to make you a top 5 paid inside linebacker in the sport right now? And I don't know.
Right.
That's a hard one for me to see out there on the market. Doesn't feel like there's that many teams as well that are desperately in need of inside linebackers, which also could drive the market cost a little bit.
Right. So hoping it works out. Definitely hoping it works out. But if you're right and he gets that significant Patrick Queen plus contract in free agency, we would get a 3rd-round pick in compensatory value next year if we play the compensatory game this offseason. It is a possibility.
Well, that's part of where you go into leaning into if you wanted to do a step back thing and you wanted to, play this game where you're not hyper aggressive and okay, you cut this contract, cut that contract, but you don't necessarily, a Uchenna Nwosu stays on the roster, for instance, right? And you just kind of go through the next year in that way. Yeah, you can definitely play this on this, but if you grind out all the cap space and then let Ernest Jones walk, you'll get no compensatory back if you're trying to flip something out there in free agency. We're going to go sign Trey Smith, and we're going to go sign this kind of guy out there in free agency. Now the offset gets pulled. So that's also why the strategy of their approach to this free agency is going to be very important on that too. If you take that approach, make sure you're leaning in that way.
Right. All right. So we're halfway through the outgoing free agents already. It's not a very compelling list. So let's take a quick break. I want to take a look at these donations real quick. Okay. We got Rain. This is on your end. He became a YouTube member earlier this morning. Thank you, Rain.
Thank you, Rain. I appreciate you doing that. Very kind of you.
Adam the Island Son, thank you for the $1.99. Isn't Zach Martin available? Well, at this point, he might be available for a reason.
Well, he's a free agent. He's 34 years old. I wouldn't be surprised if he just decides to probably hang it up and retire. Players tend to want to give a couple weeks after the end of the season to let this ruminate and figure out where they want to go. But I think that, Adam, the issue you've had a lot of times in recent years is signing aging vets that don't have a lot left that you're hoping have something left. This is the very same mistake we just made with Laken Tomlinson, but we made this mistake with Gabe Jackson and Austin Blythe and Evan Brown to a lesser degree. And Zach's even older than those guys. So he was great in his prime, probably a Hall of Famer. But at this point, I think that this is where you've made, not you, but us as an organization has made a mistake in recent years going down this line. And we probably want to stop making that same mistake and try to do something that's different, that has more a chance for success.
Yeah. And I think he had a concussion problem in his career. I think that there was an issue with he kept getting concussions. So he's probably pretty eager to go do something else with his life. So that's not the route I would go down.
I would be very surprised, Adam, if he goes on to go to a different team now at this time of his career for the first time. He's played his whole career with the Cowboys. I think it's just much more likely he's probably going to retire.
Yeah. And like you said, probably making the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Garth Knight, thank you for the $4.99. Killer
What's up,
Bees.
Garth?
You cats going early like this has been crushing my chances of catching y'all live. Nevertheless, I always catch the replay. Be well, you too. Yeah, there is a little bit of a trade-off there, but we had to move it earlier. We felt like it was actually overall helping people with not having to tune in so late.
Yeah, we had to make the call a little bit on that, Garth, with just viewership and whatnot on that, and it just made a little more sense doing the 12ers. But we'll probably get who knows? We'll get some maybe surprising news this offseason. We can do some light shows if something comes down the track that's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks, Garth. I hadn't seen you in a while. It's been a little while since I've seen you. So it's good to see you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Oh my God. I don't know if you have seen this, Brandon, but me with the $500
Jesus
super chat. This is on your end.
Whoa.
Go Hawks. Go 12.
Whoa.
Here's to the future. Thanks, B, for your content.
Well, my gosh, that is, thank you is not even anywhere close to good enough for that kind of donation. So, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. That blows me away, man. That is the biggest donation I've ever received on my channel. So, by far. So, unbelievable support me on that side of it. I thank you, man, from the bottom of my heart. You guys let me do what I get to do here. So, I thank you for that, because this is, a lot of fun to be able to do what we get to do. And it's sometimes always on the edge of not being able to always be able to get it done. So thank you. I really, really, really do appreciate it, man. You are awesome on that $500 donation. My God, man. I salute you. Thank you so much.
I didn't even know you could go that high with on YouTube.
I didn't know either, I didn't know they'd let you go up to that spot. So, thank you so much, man. Like I said, thank you just never enough on this with a $500 donation. You feel like I should give you a massage or something if you give me a $500 donut. Yeah. So, but thank you, man. I really, really thank you for it. It is really appreciated. And it says, as I've told you, and I'm sure Brendan will tell you too, it's, these donations are what lets us do what we get to do. We're not going to make this off the ad revenue or some other means. There's no sponsorship coming down. So, it is your guys' support here that lets us be able to do this full time, so we don't have to go get jobs and get back into things like IT and stuff. So thank you for that, man. I really do appreciate you, You're awesome, brother. You're awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're not all Tom Grossi here. We're not all doing content for all 32 teams.
No, it's tough out here for the content creators here, folks. So it's your guys' support and love to the channels like this. It is not, like I said, that's why I say thank you is not capture it, because it's really, really appreciated, because it does directly fuel the ability of us to continue to do the channel. We go into this off season, and I'm staring down the barrel this year of maybe having to get a job this off season. So this is the stuff that allows me to be able to go 24/7 like I'd like to be able to do on this channel, like I've been able to do for the last couple of years.
Yeah. PewDiePie ruined everything, man. Ruined everything on YouTube.
Might have so. Thank you, though, Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. That's unbelievable, that donation.
Let's see here. Kevin Mullen, thank you for the $4.99 with 11 picks. OL/DL help you think of securing within 11 picks. Specific player you hoping Hawks draft. Draft. The must-have we can't leave 2025 draft. Okay, so there are a few things here. So first, I think we have 9 picks, not 11, because we traded one for Ernest Jones and we traded one for Travis Gibson.
People are trying to say that we're going to get a third compensatory pick back, but I don't know if I'm sure of that.
That's what they're saying. They're saying we're going to get a 6th for Bobby. That's what Over the Cap thinks. So yeah. I think that's reasonable to assume, but I don't think we have 11. I think we have 7, and I think that the 7 base, and then we get 3 back, and then we lose 2. So I actually think it's 8. I think we have 8 picks total.
So we did get, we got the Darrell Taylor one, right? So the Darrell Taylor one we flipped back for Roy Robertson Harris, right? Wasn't that whole thing with that where it went?
Roy Robertson Harris was a 2026 pick, not a 2025 pick.
So we got the 2025 from the Darrell Taylor. So that one's in the mix. We lose the 4th rounder. So that's offsuit of you have 7 left then at that point, right? Between those two.
Mhm.
Then you have I believe we have then two picks for the compensatory, maybe 3, which would get you to 10. But I think you then lose what, 1 for the Travis Gibson one, which I think was a late round.
That might be right. That might be right. So it's
So
9. It's either 8 or 9.
right, that's where I think we're at on that with that.
Mhm.
With 11 picks, OLDL help you think securing within 11 picks. What does he mean on that?
I think what he's saying is, do you think that's enough to get both offensive line and defensive line help? And the answer is absolutely. There's no reason why not.
Yeah, you certainly can do it. I think if anything, Kevin, the question would be, can you take those 11 picks and can you package some of those picks to go get some of those prime offensive linemen at the top of the draft rather than looking for Oluwatimi, Sa'atoa Lamea, and Mike Jarrell in the later parts of the draft with all those collection of picks? Will John maybe be willing to more do that? Because to me, that's where, if you can come out of this draft with, especially if you can actually address something in free agency or via a trade with the offensive line, if you can come out of the draft with having, let's say, 4 picks in the first 3 rounds because you've traded back or because you packaged some of those end picks to come back up in. Now you can hit 2 offensive linemen really high in this draft and then have signed maybe somebody in addition to that and really have hammered the offensive line the way that really a lot of the Seahawks fans want to see here, Kevin. So yeah, you can get it done. It does, I think, take a little bit more of them doing less of the let's take the back end guys, which has been kind of John's claim to fame here recently, which is I'll just take 2 or 3 guys in the back end and one of them will definitely shake out. It hasn't worked out.
Yeah, he did it with J.R. Sweezy and it worked. So now he's just trying to recreate the J.R. Sweezy magic over and over and over again. And it's like the guy who enters the basketball game, hits his first 3 and he thinks he's feeling it. So then he misses his next 19 threes. And it's like, dude, stop shooting.
Yeah, the hot hand fallacy. I just think this is where he's had success in picking high in the draft outside of a Christian Haynes, and we'll see where he ends up landing. That's a rookie year. Maybe he becomes a good player for us at center. But when you took Charles Cross top 10, when you took Abraham Lucas in the 3rd round, when you took Damian Lewis in the 3rd round, even Nathan Posick was a good player. You just didn't put him at center as a 2nd rounder. And if you'd put him at center from day 1, he probably would have been a good center for you at day 1 in that position. So when you do pick high, you do pretty good from John Schneider's perspective, but he just is unwilling, as we've seen so often, to pick as often high up there because he just doesn't want to do it. As he said, I overdrafted, overpaid, whatever he said last year. And so this is where I think it's very clear what he needs to do on getting this accomplished. And that would be it. Package those picks, Kevin, move it on up and get yourself 4 picks in the top 3 rounds. You can still make 2 other picks for an inside linebacker or a safety or a wide receiver if you want, or a tight end on that too. You want to grab Warren in the 1st and then come back 2nd, 3rd round to grab, you can do that. So you still can grab your guys and your value of your board and do all that stuff from John's perspective, but then you're also at least hammering the proper talent we need to improve this offensive line.
Yeah, so it's totally doable. You just can't have a Christian Haynes situation where the guy gives you nothing as a rookie. And that shouldn't be happening, right? Christian Haynes was supposed to be ready to go. So, I mean, Damian Lewis was great as a rookie. I remember his rookie year was one of his better years. So just do that again. You can do it. It's doable. Yeah,
there's no guarantee there are going to be guys that are still going to fail out on you. And you will have times where it's, this guy in Haynes was a guy that was collectively looked at as one of the safer guards to come out of the draft who was supposed to be pro ready. This wasn't just a thought process of the Seattle Seahawks organization, but this was a pretty much a consensus view of this kid coming out. Not that he was star quality, but that he should be ready to go day 1. So sometimes you're going to miss at the top of the draft. But if we look at John's top of his draft here over the last 5-6 years, especially, and when he has picked up there, it has been more hits on those spots than it has been a Christian Haynes. And so this is sort of like the inverse to what you're just talking about with the J.R. Sweezy thing. The J.R. Sweezy thing is a success story that then emboldens you for 14 straight years to try to stay in that lane. The Christian Haynes thing can't be a one detriment to you to dissuade you when you've had so many successes in picking up at that high.
Right. And specific player you hoping the Hawks draft. I try to avoid doing this specific player thing. But Tyler Warren is really growing on me. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. If you want somebody a little bit later in the draft, hold on one second. You think about this for a second, Brandon. Let me make sure I get the name right.
I think I'll give you a couple guys that I'd be in line with this on it. On the offensive side of the ball, I think Tyler Booker or Donovan Jackson. Coming out of this with one of those 2 guys, I think would be where I would lean to on this, Kevin, from my standpoint of it. Defensively speaking, probably a Kenneth Grant because it's a kind of 2-for-1 where you're going to free up Byron Murphy from that nose tackle position, and you're getting a good player in Kenneth Brandt in addition to that. Those would be the main guys. I do like as well Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. I think he's got a lot of echoes of that kid that was out of Texas A&M. I can't remember his name, Brendan, for the life of me. But I like him as well as a guy that if we came out of this, I'd be, especially if you don't re-sign Ernest Jones, he'd be a super prime guy that I'd want to lock in on. Right about the same area, early second round pick.
Yeah. I'll throw a sleeper out there. Jamari Caldwell, nose tackle for the Oregon Ducks. I think that's going to be great value in like the 5th round.
Okay, I haven't had a chance to take a look at him quite yet. I've looked at a few of the Ducks, Lyman and Birch, and they have another guy. Derek Harmon's pretty nice too. He's a 3-tech though.
Harmon's going to be a 1st-round pick, I think.
Yeah, he's got an insane amount of pressures this year.
And the must-have, we can't leave the 2025 draft. If you're not going to go get Tevin Jenkins, then you have to draft a left guard at some point. Like, we can't do this anymore. We can't do the Laken Tomlinson stuff anymore.
That's where I come back to, Donovan Jackson, Tyler Booker here, Kevin. I don't think there's a lot of left guards in free agency for us to go find. We're probably going to have to go and get this in the draft. These are 2 of the far and away best left guards, I believe, in this draft. And also that they give you the floor where you're not taking as much of the risk of, he's got upside, but he's really raw and it's going to take many years to get there. These are guys that should be plug and play guys that you put in there, a lot like you thought Haynes was, to where you can get a very remarkable improvement right from the jump. And maybe they're not high ceiling guys with a lot of star potential, but they should be very steady Eddie for you right from the jump.
Right. All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Garth Knight, thank you for the $4.99. At me, the boys owe you a jacuzzi stream. Awesome dono.
We do for that. We have to give him a jacuzzi stream for the $500 drop, man. You better believe it.
Yeah. I got to plug mine in. It takes like 2 days to warm up. I think it's unplugged right now because we had rats living under it because it's so warm. Like one day we pulled back the panel and there's like, oh crap.
Yeah, they do, man. They can sense it's there and they'll get under it. I've had other friends who had the same issue with that.
Yeah, you need a plutonium reactor to heat those things. Sometimes it feels like too. It's so hot.
Yeah, no, it's probably pretty costly energy wise too. Although they're energy efficient, I guess now they're better than they used to be.
Yeah, they're pretty decent. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have to do one of those at some point. It is cold right now. Like every morning, I've been getting up at 8 to go to the gym lately, which I hate doing. Worst thing ever. But when I wake up, the whole car is frozen. You can barely walk on the driveway. It's like, yeah, it's that time of the year.
Yeah, at least you're not dancing around forest fires. I step out my home and I've got to, pivot left, pivot right, duck,
Yeah. Did it get to where you are?
We had some Mira Mesa, which is just down the road, and they've got more burning up now. So yeah, there's stuff going on all around us right now. I don't know what's happening, but fire after fire, and we've had no rain this whole winter so far in Southern California, so it's just dry as a bone.
Right. Well, hopefully it's getting better from here on out.
I hope so. We've got an evacuation plan. It's to that point. So,
Dogzilla, thank you for the $100 dono. Digging deep here so that Brendan gets gratitude too. Well, thank you, Dogzilla. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Dogzilla. Appreciate that, man.
All right. So no question here. So nothing really for us to answer, but yeah, thank you very much, Dogzilla. Wish we could do more for a donation like this, but it's definitely appreciated.
We need a crazy meme or something we can bring out or something, some cool graphic.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll have to think about that. I'm sure there's something we can do.
Get somebody on Fiverr to put it together.
MJ Seahawk, thank you for the $2. Brandon going to Sizzler after me's donation.
That's for sure, man. We're getting the full platter, MJ Seahawk. Going with a full platter.
Never been to Sizzler, I don't think.
It's good. It's kind of died off now, hasn't it, a little bit? So
yeah.
I think that's a white man can't jump reference though, too. We're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler.
White men can't jump. Was that Woody Harrelson?
Yeah, so okay. It's Woody and Wesley Snipes, and Snipes has got a buddy, and he talks his buddy into giving him the money so he can bet Woody Harrelson's character on the one-on-one. And he's like, we're going to go to Sizzler. It's going to be all right. And so as Woody's shooting, the guy's right in his ear going, we're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler. And then Woody makes the shots and takes the money. Yeah. So he's not going to Sizzler.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, maybe you should go to Dino's. Maybe you can see John Schneider interviewing our next offensive coordinator.
Yeah, just hang out in there and wait, right?
Mhm.
We
Yeah,
know you guys will end up here. We know you'll end up here at some point.
yeah, guerrilla journalism.
That's right. You got to do what you got to do, man.
Corey, thank you for the $4.99. First, both of you make football more enjoyable. Thanks for that. Second, the season didn't end the way we wanted, but 10 wins, nothing to scoff at. Well, thank you, Corey. I appreciate that.
We're on the right path, Corey. It's your point. 10 wins, we can get lost in a lot of this because some of this is about how do we put the rest of the team together? How do we get to contending? And these are very key questions asked now at this point. But there's always the to your point, you always need to put this in perspective of what the team did accomplish this year under a first-time head coach, youngest head coach in the NFL, and that is to get to the 10 wins. And that's unusual in football to see a first-time coach get there like that. And so there is way more to feel emboldened by than to feel negative by with this team. They're on the right path. It's really just about how soon can they get to the culmination of this potential, of this foundation. And that's where there's the disagreement, I think, at times in the fan base. But everyone, I think, is in pretty much alignment after this year to know you are on the right path.
Yeah, I guess it's always tougher when you're kind of hanging around the middle. If the team was really bad, everybody would agree that things need to change. If the team was really good, everyone would agree that everything's cool. When you're kind of here, where you've had over the last 4 seasons 7, 9, 9, 10 wins, a little bit harder. So I understand why there's some disagreement. But I do think if you step back and take a look at the big picture, there's a little bit of luck here, right? Like we won 10 games. Most years you win 10 games, you're in. Every other team that won 10 or more games got in. We kind of got unlucky here in some ways. And nobody wants to hear that, but it's true.
Yeah, it's a part of it. I mean, you're the first team that's gotten back-to-back winning seasons in football history and not gotten to the playoffs in either of those 2 years. That's definitely a definition of pretty unlucky when you're the team to have to pull that card. But they are a good team. They've got the good parts. They've got good players at important positions that are hard positions to find good players at. There's still a lot of work to be done, but it's moving in the right direction overall.
Right. I definitely agree with that. Thank you, Corey.
Appreciate you, Corey.
Robbie Red, thank you for the $1.99. BNB mock draft. Thank you for your hard work, gents. Now we're definitely planning on doing a lot of draft stuff when the time comes. I think we'll see if it happens, but that's definitely the plan.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be doing dueling mock drafts, Robbie, on a stream. So we'll be rolling with that. You'll get a couple of, I'm sure, ones we run. We'll probably run some together ones. We'll maybe do some debate, like an in-house deal, but we'll try to run definitely a few of them on our side of it here for sure.
Yeah, and just keep tuned for that. It is worth noting that we got to get through free agency first, because what free agency brings will affect what we feel about the draft, I'm sure. I don't think there's a scenario where we spend big money on a tight end and then we draft Tyler Warren, right? That wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a good point on that. And to Robbie Red, that's the part we got to wait for that little bit of that shoe to drop to be able to, on top of it as well, when we're doing the mock drafts, we want to do the 7th rounders if we can. And both in me and Brendan's case, we want to try to get through the draft prospects to have a view of them so that we're accurately, picking the right guys, the right places of where they're going to go and trying to get it. Because the point to me is, and I think there is value in it, Brendan, and trying to run these exercises through to look at what feasibly is the guy that'll be available to you. I mean, we both had Byron Murphy mock last year on a couple of our mocks. I think prior couple of years, we had both Jackson Smith at times on some of our mocks out there at 20. So these are exercises that have a lot of help, I think, in aiding you on what the likely direction is to go. It doesn't tell you for sure, but it just gives you, here's the kind of names that you have sort of into available, for you on that. And so, yeah, once we get through free agency, we'll have a better idea on that, right? Plus, through the prospects, how many have you gotten through, Brendan? On
well, in terms of like specific stuff, I'm probably only like, I think 40 or 50 deep, but okay. I'm not going to pick up on that really heavy until after I get through the free agency work, because again, I want to get through that stuff first. Yep. And I don't know, I don't want to spend, dozens of hours of my life looking at something that ends up being completely irrelevant to me. Like, I don't feel the need to I don't want to spend like several dozen hours looking at running backs only to find out that we have all of our running backs set up, right?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It does
so
make
I want
to
make sure I'm doing it the right way. But we're going to have fun with it this offseason, I think.
For sure.
Holiest Hand Grenade, thank you for the member message over on the Hawks Nest side. Member for 17 months. At least I got the OG account back.
Yeah, I didn't know hand grenade. I didn't know why it got off. Like I said, sometimes people get their phones in their pocket when they're mods on the channel, and sometimes it's happened before, but some people get accidentally X'd off. So I'm sorry about that went down like that. But glad we got you back in, man.
Yeah, that's great news. Welcome back, Holiest Hand Grenade.
Thank you for 17 months.
Feed me more. Thank you for the $2. I'm making a video for you, Hawks Nest. # memories.
Well, thank you, Feed Me. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for that. We're fighting on my end on it. Appreciate everybody in the discussion last night on the channel. We're just as talked about here on the channel with the $500 drop for me, which is very kind on him. You know, folks, we got to do this. We can only do this as we've got the support. If support's not there, then we got to go out there and do other stuff. You know, you guys understand that. That's just the lay of the land in the world on this type of stuff. So hopefully not fighting my ass off for it to not be that case, but might very well become the case.
You know, this super chat becomes threatening if you put it in the right context, right? Like, what kind of video are we talking about here? Is this like revenge porn? Like, what are we doing here?
Could be a lot of things there. Yeah, it's very open ended.
Yeah, so you got to be more specific. What kind of video are we talking here? It could be creepy, could be scary, it could be heartwarming, it could be endearing, it could be funny. Like a couple different ways on this one.
Exactly.
Bronze Sausage, thank you for the $1.99. You guys are, I think he means awesome. Go Hawks. No, thank you, Bronze Sausage.
Thank you, Bronze Sausage. I appreciate that.
All right. So we're caught up now. We're going to go back to the outgoing free agents. We're going to get through the second half now. And we just did Ernest Jones, which, like I said, by far the most compelling guy. This next guy coming off his rookie deal, number 9, Trey Brown, was making that 4-year, $4.1 million rookie contract. Any interest in bringing him back in 2025 for the Seahawks?
I thought he was going to take off at Mike McDonald's scheme. I really did. And he looked ill-suited for it. But his press man coverage stuff was supposed to be really where he'd be at his best instead of the off-coverage stuff in zone, which is a lot of what he'd be playing with under the Carroll scheme. But it seemed that he was more comfortable doing the off-coverage zone stuff than he was doing the press stuff. Another guy, in addition, just had a hellacious time staying healthy throughout his time here in Seattle. I think that this is something that we've got a guy that just multiple years over can't stay healthy. It's a bit like Artie Burns. It's just like, look, no matter what you bring to the field, I can't rely on you. You're not out there. Say nothing for the fact that he had maybe his worst year as a pro, Brendan, this year when he played. Now, was it injury centric? Maybe, but I don't see what there being much worthwhile in pursuing him into the future. Is he just hasn't given you much.
Yeah, I was shocked at how poor he was this year overall. That one completely out of left field to me. I thought we were getting something pretty good with him. That one floored me, honestly. Of all the disappointments on this team, he was one of the biggest.
Yeah, then again, it's a guy's surprising because you're heading into a contract year. We would expect you to be at your best. You're now in a defense that's perfectly suited to your skill set. But, he had the one game in there where they put him out late in the season where he seemed to have finally gotten over the injuries. And now he's back out there. We could really use him. I think we had an injury. Maybe it was Derek at that point or somebody. And then he got smoke showed, I think, on a couple of routes when he was out there.
Yeah, I think the Giants game was really bad for him. I think he got on the field for that one. Like Daniel Jones just took him behind the woodshed.
Yeah. And he was a kid who had a lot of bright moments for you as a rookie and seemed to be a guy that even last year at a Cincinnati game played a great game in that game, especially at the end with a knockaway on T. Higgins at the end. But the light just never turned on with Trey Brown.
Mm-hmm. And if he can't play well before he gets paid, I don't really want to see him after he gets paid.
Exactly. Say nothing of the injury factor doesn't get better once you start giving him money.
All right, so this next one, we're introducing a little bit of a new concept here. This is Jalen Darden, who we picked up midseason to return punts. He was on a 1-year, about $1 million contract, slightly under $1 million, but he is a restricted free agent. Now, I don't think that's really going to matter for this guy because even the lowest restricted tag is $3 million. The highest is like $7 million. I don't think those numbers are going to come into account with Jalen Darden. So really, we're talking about, do you want to bring him back for the minimum to return punts in 2025? How'd you feel that Darden did when he came into Seattle this year?
9-day difference from what you had with the other two returners back there, both kick return and punt return. He supplies both. I'm perfectly happy giving him $1 million. If he wants $2 million, I'll give him $2 million on a 1-year deal for the safety of and the sanctity of having that in sure hands. It was a problematic position for us throughout the year. He steadied the ship once he got in there. He's not going to be Devin Hester back there, but he's efficient. He's productive. He's good in both areas. I'm fine spending that money.
Yeah, the right of first refusal tender for a restricted free agent is $3 million. Would you be willing to go that high?
No.
Yeah.
$2 million is as high as go, and even that's probably me feeling like I don't really want to go that high, but I will just to get certainty at the position.
It is worth noting he's a former 4th-round pick, so there is a little bit of receiver talent that just hasn't come out yet, so it can't be completely ruled out.
He's a slot guy coming out, so like if something happens with JSN or Bobo and you need to come to, like, he's a guy you could maybe call upon at that point.
It's can't completely count it out. All right, next guy, same contractual situation. Josh Joby, number 11. Made 1 year and about $1 million this last year. He's restricted, and I think Joby played pretty darn well last year. So this is a little bit interesting. This is somebody I'd like to keep if at all possible.
Yeah, I would too. And McDonald's got a lot of familiarity with him, having played with the Ravens prior. I would give him the restricted on this one. He really fit well to the defense. He's really instinctive as a player. Almost jumped around in the Atlanta Falcon game for a pick. Came back, got a pick on Josh Allen, and that was a legit pick on Allen where he jumped in front of that route. I mean, he ran the route better than the wide receiver did to make that pick, and had a few moments like that. I think he did kind of cool off as he played more and more, but looking at the corner position right now, especially if we do something with Reek Woolen as far as a move goes, you need some bodies in here. And if Reek were to go, all you've really got is Devin Witherspoon and Nehemiah Pritchett. So you need some help here. This gives you a little bit of some insurance there, especially as you approach the draft, having a guy like this in your back pocket, so that you're not pressed to have to pick for need.
Right. So the right of first refusal tender is about $3 million. You would do the 1 year, $3 million for Joby?
I would. I think he's going to give you $3 million worth of play. And if you had more depth at the corner position, maybe be opposed to just, hey, let's see if we can just sign him back on a low end deal. But being where the depth is at the position, I think you're kind of required to have to do it.
Right. The second round tender is 4.9. Would you go that high?
No. No one's going to sign him at the other tender. I mean, don't you get a 4th round pick back on the other tender or something?
It's the original round that he was drafted in, but he was undrafted.
Oh, okay. So I'd still put him at that. No one's going to sign this guy to a contract extension for a couple of games of played this year. I don't think.
Yeah. And if somebody does, then good for them. At a certain point, you gotta, say, hey, we can find the next Josh Joby. Apparently, they're growing on trees.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Just it's a good draft for cornerbacks. You can just go back there at that point if it's really that much. We really want to. I think that the commonality thing here has to be, Brendan. It's a bit like the Ernest Jones deal, is that you're not sitting here with $70 million just walking into the offseason. You're going to have to clear cap space to create your cap. Now, you can create a lot, but you do need to be a bit careful in how you spend your money this offseason, because you're not just freewheeling and dealing here. You're not Scrooge McDuck swimming through a vault of coins and cash. So we've got to be a little careful.
Right. So we both like Joby. We both want to bring him back. I think I'm with you. The 1 year, $3 million tender sounds just about right. I like it.
Yeah. I expect they'll probably do it too.
I would hope so, especially if we're getting Woolen out of here, which I mean, I got no proof of it. I feel like it can really happen.
I do too. I just think there's just a pivot here that's going to go on a little bit. I think fans might be a little surprised this offseason at how much turnover there's going to be in certain places than what they're expecting walking into it. Just my instinct on this one. I don't think it's going to be just run it back as a mentality necessarily into next year. Not that they're going to clear house, but just that guys like this, that some of you might, oh no, he isn't going anywhere. He's here. I don't know. I can see him being moved.
All right. Now we're getting down to the very bottom here. And a lot of these remaining guys are going to be exclusive rights free agents, like Brady Russell. Brady Russell made about $915,000 last year, and he is an exclusive rights free agent, which means that if the Seahawks offer him the minimum deal for him, which I believe would be like $985,000, he can either sign it or he can go sell insurance. He can't turn it down. He can't go to another team. He would have to either retire or just ask the team, hey, do me a favor. Can you please let me go? So it's binary here. Either you give him 1 year, 985,000, or you don't. So what are you doing with Brady Russell?
I would probably lean towards not, but it's $1 million, and we're going to probably let go of Noah Fant and be down to AJ Barner, and so to have a camp body there for training camp alone is just the fourth tight end to sign. Have in addition to the two that you got to go probably find. There's probably value in there to do that at that point, but I don't want to guarantee him $1 million, which is what I think you have to kind of do by this a little bit. Is there's like a guaranteed aspect of it, so I'd probably look to just try to sign him back in as a practice squad guy rather than give him a restricted tag.
Yeah, what's the Jack Westover up to? I think he's just floating around out there. Go get him.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. It's basically going to be a camp body. I don't see this guy ever being a third tight end on your roster.
Yeah, he played like 2 snaps a game on average, I think, when he was healthy.
Yeah.
And he was more like a fullback than he was a tight end, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, this next guy, most people probably don't even know was on the team last year, but he was on the team at the end. It was Josh Ross, linebacker. 1 year, same situation as Brady Russell. You can offer him the minimum, which is 985,000, or you can just say happy trails.
Do we have Drake Thomas on the roster after this year?
I believe he is still under contract.
Okay. I do like the thought of potentially bringing Josh back in. We didn't really need him on the field because Jones and Tyrese Knight stayed healthy through the back end of the stretch, so he could kind of stay on the bench. But knows Mike McDonald's scheme backwards and forwards. Won't cost a lot of money. I think that as well, when you look at the inside linebacker position depth-wise, past Drake, I don't think we've got a lot at the inside linebacker position right now as it stands. So there's also room there. And if you sign Ernest Jones, you're not really as much pressed, I think, to look at drafting an inside linebacker really high in the draft. So I would go, well, have him here in the mix, and maybe you go get a 5th, 6th, 7th round guy as another inside linebacker to kind of duke it out on in there. But get yourself set up with some depth. Set yourself up well so you don't have to draft a guy in the draft. You've got him on the roster, but if there's a guy you like, then you pick him.
All right. Yeah, I just confirmed it. So Drake Thomas signed a 3-year deal with the Raiders, and then the Raiders let him go, and we just picked up the remaining amount of the contract. So he's still under contract for 2025 at 1.03 million.
That's good. That's a good deal. So I still need some more help in there, but it's not a lot for $1 million for a guy in Ross who has that familiarity, knows the system, knows the scheme, can do a variety of different things in this defense. I think it's a good depth piece.
Yeah, you might be able to squeeze him onto the practice squad too, where you end up stashing him there and paying him a lot less.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Outgoing free agent number 14. This is a guy who actually had one really good game last year. It's Cody White. Cody White made $915K last year on his contract. You can offer him 1 year, $985K, or you can say hit the road. That is his ERFA tag. What do you think?
I wouldn't want to ERF him. It's like Josh. I just try to find a contract with them that's a non-guaranteed deal to say, look, you'd be a guy that's going to certainly be on our practice squad bare minimum, and you're in the mix as competition-wise. And if you can fight your ass off and get yourself in the mix, wide receiver 5 or whatever on this, then great. We're not going to guarantee it. We're not guarantee your salary, but we're going to give you a chance. You're in the competition for it. I liked what Cody White brought. He had that one game there where kind of went off in that one game where I don't think there was DK or was out there. And so you had to really work him.
The Rams game.
Yeah. The Rams game. And he played really well. He played really, really well for you. So I would be open to bringing him back because the wide receiver room is going to look a little thin on the surface of it. You lose Tyler Lockett and you got, we don't say nothing of where we're at with what's going to go on DK. So, JSN and Bobo is pretty much what you got. So there's definitely some room to bring in a guy that, has been here already. And he showed a little bit of something last year, I thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the ERFA contracts are guaranteed because I think we've done this before where we give somebody the tender and then we yoink it later and we don't give them anything.
I agree that. I think that has occurred before.
So if that's the case, I'm fine with it. I would do it.
Yeah, I would do that as well if you can get out under it and get him in the mix because, we don't have a very deep wide receiver class. I'm not sure if I want even outside of looking at the number 2 wide receiver in sort of the 3rd-ish round. I don't know if there's a receiver I really want to grab in this draft based on the first looks of things.
Yeah, there are going to be a couple of guys, but we probably like McMillan's not falling to us. And my problem with these receivers, they're all slot guys. None of these guys know how to beat press.
Yep. They're all slot guys or gadgety guys. Same Savion Williams from TCU's 6'5". You look at him on the surface and you go, okay, that'll be an outside guy. No, he's a gadgety Cordell Patterson kind of player is how you'll look to use him. So yeah, it's kind of wild this year looking at all the slot guys, Emeka Ibuka, Luther Burden. There's quite a few of them that are in this that are you're just like, man, it's even the guys that are kind of sub outside guys like the two Texas guys, Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond.
Yeah.
They're also guys that are going to eat up a lot of slot snaps at the NFL level. They're not just going to be pure Z's on the outside either. So you're right. This is not a good draft for wide receivers. It's been a bit tough looking at some of these guys on it where you're like, man, yeah, he's just a pure slot, and if the guy's played, you'd agree with this, Brendan, if he's played 85% of his snaps, if he's played 85% of his snaps in the slot at college, that's not a guy that's going to be playing 80% of his snaps on the outside at the NFL level.
If they can move outside, it'll take a while. It's not going to happen overnight. Like some guys learn how to play outside, but that takes years and years and years.
I don't know. I can't think of the guy outside of I really can't think of a guy at college level that operated exclusively from the slot and then went to the outside at the pro level, because it's the same reasons that keep you in the slot at the college level are even more further increased at the pro level. Lack of size, lack of catch radius, can't get off press coverage. That type of thing, maybe don't have the long speed to separate on the outside. That doesn't get any better once you get to the pro level. And I don't know. I mean, maybe you can educate me on one, but I can't think of one that was able to make that transition in that way.
Yeah, I was being more hypothetical rather than, specific, just saying that if it happened, it wouldn't happen in one off season.
True. That is true.
Okay, number 15. We're getting down to the very bottom of the list here. We've got Stone Forsythe. Coming off that rookie deal, 4 years, $3.6 million, trying to make a little more money this offseason. What are you doing with Mr. Forsythe?
Stone Forsythe got through about 10 games of the season. I think he had played in just about every game because George Fant lasted about 5 snaps at right tackle this year. He was out for about 3 games after his injury, and he was still leading the league in pressures allowed 3 weeks after that injury occurred. He's not a good player. That's the bottom line on Stone, is that, he's been functional at times for us as a swing tackle, but he's coming off probably his worst season. And again, it's like Trey Brown, Brendan, where you're like, oh, you've had 4 years of development in a pro franchise and weight room and refining technique. And yet the final year of your deal, you're in the worst shape. Hard to make sense of that. Hard to feel like you're impelled to then want to bring that guy back when the last note is such a sour note. And just like Trey, where it's like, there's something there that's workable in this guy. But unfortunately, I can't, when you're coming off that kind of year and you're in sort of a prove it mode and you didn't prove it, I'm not going to reward you for a lack of proving it.
Yeah, I think it would cost like 1.21 million vet min for him because of his years of service. I think you could probably get something equivalent for about half that in like UDFA or the very late rounds of the draft. So, it's not a huge expenditure, but why make it, right? What's the difference? Just go get somebody in UDFA. It's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah, he's giving you no floor of play that you don't think you can replicate. I think Mike Jarrell is above him as the new swing tackle.
At this point, yeah.
So it's just kind of a, I'd had hope for Stone, and he had some moments and flashes. He'd given you some functional play at times through the years, but this last year was really bad.
Yeah, he was playing out of position, I think. He's a left tackle. They were playing it right. That doesn't help. But we're probably about to give Charles Cross a lot of money. We don't need to be spending money on a backup left tackle anyway. Just go get somebody new who's going to be a little bit cheaper.
I think Jarrell, too, is kind of the same way. I think Jarrell's better fit to the left tackle than right tackle as well. So to your point, I think you're set up and fine there at the left.
Right. So, yeah, I think we both agree. Forsythe, not much interest there. Last guy, and there's not going to be a lot of ceremony here. It's Joshua Onujiogu. Joshua Onujiogu is our final outgoing free agent. Made about $800,000 last year. He is exclusive rights, and his exclusive rights tag, I think, would be about $900,000. So stay or go.
You can go on this one. I think he was injured through some of this year, but he hasn't given you anything, so there's no reason to re-sign him back in.
Yeah, just throw him on the practice squad at the end of the offseason. I'm sure he'll make it. I can't imagine anybody being like, yeah, I got to have me Joshua Onujiogu.
Yeah, I think the same way. And this is a pretty deep, edge group, so I just don't see there being any. He hasn't given you anything on that side of it, so.
Yeah, you can go sit on the couch until we have a bunch of injuries in week like 13 or something.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm. All right. So that's it for the outgoing free agents for the Seahawks. So as you can see, there isn't really a lot we have to keep here, right? We both wanted to keep Jones and Darden and Joby and I guess Ross and White, and that's it. And every one of those guys, except for Jones and Joby, are going to be super cheap.
They are. You don't have a lot of hard decisions here to make, and it's really the tougher decisions are almost kind of the de facto free agents that aren't free agents in Geno and DK, being that those are the ones that you have to make a decision on one way or the other on what you're giving. So they're kind of like, but not. But these other guys, they're pretty straightforward as far as the decision making goes and what you need to do with them. No one's really going to break the bank, even in the case of Ernest Jones. It's going to be really no more than past 40 million on any kind of contract at the highest end of things. So even that's not bad. So you should be able to get a couple of these deals done, but just not a lot of in-house free agents to have to deal with.
Now, if we get Ernest Jones on the let's say 3 for 36, what would that first year cap hit probably be? I want to take a look at the Patrick Queen contract real quick here as a little bit of a template. So
you'll be out 7 or 8 on the first year of the cap hit.
Yeah, Patrick Queen's first year cap hit was actually only 6. So if you could get it down to 6. Now we might choose not to do that because we don't want to backload it, but you could get it to 6 easily.
You could. John does tend to be one that'll lower the first year of the cap hit, but he does seem to tend to like a little bit of the, everything sort of evened over the portion of the contract as far as the hits go, rather than really lowering down that first year hit. That tends to be how he is for the most part on contracts. He'll take lower down a little bit, but he doesn't go down like some teams do, like a Niners team will do, base minimum here. It's like the difference between the Dre'mont Jones contract and the Javon Hargrave contract, where Hargrave, the Niners buried all that money as low as they could. And John kind of had the first year hit of Dre'mont in still a pretty sizable, decent place. It wasn't just butt cheap in that first year like it was for the Niners with Hargrave, but John's also proven right on this, Brendan, because Niners would love to get out of Hargrave's contract this offseason, but they can't because you paid him that low base salary. So now you have all that bonus money on the books, so there's no money to be saved by moving off of him.
Right, exactly. My understanding is they are stuck with him based on what I was looking at. So I think you're right there. But so even if we sign everybody that we just talked about, that would take on 11-12 million in additional money for 2025. So we still have plenty of money left, man.
We do. You can do whatever you want this offseason. And I've been an advocate for potentially taking a step back to take this 2 steps forward, Brendan. But I've also acknowledged, and I think it's just as much of a reality here, that if the team wants to be hyper aggressive and they say, okay, we've been stuck for the last 3 years, we've been stuck for the last 10 years in this middle of the road state, we need to do something to jostle this free. We need to shake this up in some way. And the way that we'll shake this up is we'll go to crazy town as far as some of the money spending or the trades we make or how aggressive we are. And if they're willing to do that on the other side of it, they've got the means to do it, especially with 26 and 27's cap situation being as in great shape as it is. You can rob from tomorrow for today if you want to be hyper aggressive. Again, not saying this is what I'm absolutely advocating for. I think there's just a couple different roads the team can take with this one, and they can get done whatever they want to get done. I think what I'm really trying to say here, Brendan, I think you agree on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts that, I don't want to hear the team giving us this excuses about not being able to do things. Well, we want to do more, but we were just, we just didn't have a lot of the team. We wanted to do it. No, you can do whatever you want to get done here. It's just about what your motivation is and what you're trying to really drive towards in 2025.
Yeah. I'm not really going to be in the mood to listen to that stuff right now, especially because we're kind of on, in a way, technically we're on that middle of the road treadmill. It feels like. Now, I don't want to frame that in the same way that other teams frame it, because we have made big moves recently, like moving on from a quarterback, moving on from a head coach. So I don't want to act like we're one of those teams that just never does anything and just sits in the middle and is okay with it. That's not true. But the results have been this. So you should probably overextend yourself a little bit.
Yeah, it's where I say too, there's the reason to say, okay, well, we've gone, somewhat aggressive, but not hyper aggressive. Let's dial this back and coldly, calmly, comfortably, intelligently build this back up in a bit of more of a slower fashion, or you can hyper inject it. I think that those are really the 2 pathways here for this offseason, Brendan, but I think that the team would be smart to choose one of those 2 pathways rather than what they've done in prior years, which is a little bit of that middle ground, which is a little bit of that sitting up on the fence rather than picking a side of the fence. And that's where I think the team would be better suited if they really want to jostle themselves out of this. And I think both directions can get you there. One gets you there a little bit faster than the other, but they both can get you there. But I think they get you there. The approach you've been applying the last couple of years won't get you there. You keep trying the same thing. If we go into this offseason signing some veteran, Kevin Zeitler at left guard, and then go draft a guy in the 3rd round, and then we'll draft a guy in the 6th round, and that'll be about it. Maybe one other veteran that's on his last legs you got on that line. And you take this kind of pathway again, and we've seen it. It's very specific to John, isn't it? Like what he does in an offseason, you can kind of predict if he fits to form, can't you, Brendan? Like it's not a like, well, he depends on the offseason. He might go here, he might no. You kind of know how he's going to operate every given offseason, don't you? And so if you take the same approach, I think, Brendan, you're going to get the same results, don't you?
Sure feels like it, especially right now, especially with this team. Maybe previous teams I could have seen betting on the optimistic side of things, but with this team, I feel like you gotta go a little bit.
Yeah. And I'd support him on going either direction with it, hyper aggressive or taking the step back. But it's going to be harder to support if you're sitting on that fence and you're just trying to kind of partially dip your toe into the water rather than cannonball your way in. I don't think that that's the pathway to us getting to contending status.
Yeah. And real quick, I know we talked a little bit about the rookie deal extension candidates, but your position is Cross is the one guy that we should definitely extend now, right? That remains your position.
Cross would be the only guy that I would extend. Mafe is a slight potential, but the only way you're doing Mafe is if you're getting a heavy discount on that deal. Because I'm not paying Mafe like he's a 12 sack a year elite edge. He's not been that. He's been a good edge. But the guy right now looks like he's going to be a good run defending edge to get you about between 7 to 9 sacks a season. That's fine. But what is that? What are you paying for that, right, Brendan? Like, what's the bottom line cost of that really on a contract extension? It's like I got to get kind of a discount, don't I? I mean, I got to get a little bit of a, hey, I don't have to pay you.
I estimated Mafe could be like 4 years, 60 million. I don't feel the need to be doing that necessarily right now. Like maybe if it was like what if it was like 336? Would you do that? 12 million a year? I'd probably do that.
I'd probably do that, I guess, especially because you're probably going to let Uchenna Nwosu go at the same time that you do that deal. So essentially, he just takes over Uchenna's money with that and how you pass it over. So I would probably be okay with that. It's just when we start getting into the upper crust of the teens, mid-teens, upper crust of the teens per year cost, that's where that starts to make my butt scratch.
Right. But anyway, back to Cross real quick here. My estimated extension for him would be 4 years, 104. You do that?
Yep, I do that.
Okay. Right. Ken Walker at this point, because he had not a very good year, you could probably get him pretty cheap. Like it would probably be like 3 for 18, but I still don't think I'd do it.
I think that the Eagles have supplied us a very, very. I think that what they have done with the Saquon Barkley situation is given us really an exclamation point in regards to the running back conversation, Brendan. And we've talked about the fact that the Seahawks have run out an experiment the past 2 years with Walker and Charbonnet, being that offensive lines don't really matter. If you got the star running back, he can overcome that. This has been disproven with these two guys in here and that they've not, by and large, been able to do that for the most part. And so the Giants had this with Saquon where they didn't give him a good offensive line. The guy was around 1,300 yards per year. You put him behind a good offensive line and gets up to 2,000. So if you look at Kenneth, who's a lesser version of a Saquon, Kenneth's right around 900 to 1,000 yards, but you get him that kind of offensive line like the Eagles have, he gets you to a 1,100 yard season. Well, are you in a position to do that right now? To give this guy any money, are you in a position to maximize him as a player at this point? No, you're not. You don't have the line in place to do that. And so it doesn't make any sense to then give him that money. And this is the part, it's the same thing I think we've got to apply. Tell me if you think you're off or you're in a different place on this, but it's the same thing you have to apply to drafting running backs high in the second round or high in the first round. If you're going to do that, have the line in place beforehand, because the analytic folks have been proven right on this one. Not wrong. They've been proven right. This was something 4 years ago that was brought up by them to say, look, running backs do not drive this. The offensive line drives the running back value, not vice versa. And if you're going to get the star running back, if you're going to get that badass, then what you need to have is the badass line in front of him to maximize him out to the fullest. It's a little like Sean Alexander. It's like Sean Alexander, a first-round running back. To maximize Sean Alexander out to 1,800 yard season and 30 touchdowns, you had a couple of Hall of Famers and a solid offensive line all in front of him to make that happen, to maximize that guy out. So I think that's really got to be the lesson. Tell me if you feel differently on this, but I think this has got to be the lesson now in how we look at running backs going forward on all of those accounts.
Yeah, I don't think there's really much of any other way to look at it. I mean, we have two running backs here who are good. I think both running backs are really good. I think they both proven they can play in this league at a high level, but what's it worth? What did we get out of them really last year in terms of actually helping us win games? Very little, it felt like.
That's right. That's my feeling as well. And it's I was open to John's experiment going differently on this, Brendan. I was, but it hasn't worked out. It's not been like John's been proven a genius on this. It's that the analytic folks have been proven a genius on this. That their approach of this has been proven right. And I don't necessarily like it. I think that the running backs can matter and help, but you can't deny the data and what it's telling you.
The next guy would be Abe Lucas. I know you said you were open to this one. You would at least
Yeah.
consider it. Would you do like 3 years, 30? So that would basically make it 4 years, 32 because of what's left on the rookie deal.
Yes, I would. This is obviously with the caveat. We don't know we do not know. Nobody knows, Brendan. Nobody in Seahawks fandom knows exactly what the medicals say for Abraham Lucas and that knee. So this is a big conversation, if I'm John Schneider, between me and the doctors as well, and really saying, hey, you guys need to give me an accurate assessment of what's going on here with this thing. And I need to know where he's at with this and likelihood he's going to be able to play on this for the next couple of years. But if they give me the stamp of approval and say that, hey, he's good to go, the surgery fixed it, he's rehabbed well, he's a hard worker, he's going to get this thing right, I think you can get a bit of a discount deal on him right now versus waiting a year. He goes out there and plays like a badass, gives you a Pro Bowl year, and now you're on the hook of having to pay another $20 million a year to him in addition to the $20 million a year you're paying for Cross.
Right. I'd probably do that. Yeah, I'd be okay with it. He did post on Instagram that he's going to the offseason with no health concerns. Now, take that for what it's worth, but it's encouraging.
It is. And if there was, I'd be on the other end. If the doctors are telling me, man, look, it's a flip the coin up in the air and wherever that coin lands is what's going to determine whether or not he can play or not. If it's that, then I don't do the extension, right? But if they give me that clean bill of health, this guy is a building block for this offensive line like Cross is. It's hard to find good right tackles in this sport like he's been. He was a huge lift to this team when he came back. And so I do believe that it would be worth it. On top of you get a bit of a discount on the deal of him versus what the cost will probably be if he is healthy and does go out there and give you that great season next year.
Kobe Bryant, would you extend him? Like what kind of money would it need to be for you to be down with a Kobe Bryant extension?
I really wouldn't do a Kobe Bryant extension. If I give an extension to it, a guy, I need probably to see a little bit more longer of it. I do. I like him here. I think that some of this is also, Brendan, I think there's a potential with the whole value-based model of this where you can kind of do like what the Eagles do a little bit here, where, let's say you're in the first round and you love a Malachi Starks. And maybe you go get a Malachi Starks in that first round and you run a lot more 3 safety looks like you ran this year. They ran a lot of 3 safety looks this year, Brendan, with Kayvon Wallace back there and Jenkins when he came back as well. So the first year you're running 3 safety looks with Bryant and with Love and with Starks. And then you've got your heir apparent for Bryant after next year to slide Starks in there. We're paying Julian Love big money right now. It didn't help us to be paying big money to both safety positions prior with Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. And this is like the inside linebacker thing with Ernest Jones. You kind of want to be leaning into a little bit of these league trends to a certain degree. If you're going to be so much more brilliant than everybody else, right? You're going to be like, no, we're going to have 2 top 10 paid safeties in the league while everyone else in the sport is devaluing the safety position and spending as less as possible for their safeties. And then it doesn't work. It's like the running back thing. It's got to be like, that's a lesson then. That's something that's now taught you that your ways were not right in the pathway that you went with that. So how do you pivot off of that to correct it? I don't think you double back down by giving high-end contracts to both safety positions, albeit these would be lower than the Diggs Jamal deals because I know Julian Love's not destroying the bank with his deal.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you feel a little bit similar on this one going down this pathway at this point?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Although I do wonder what an extension would be like. Would it be like 3 years, 18 million? That would not be anywhere near the Jamal Quandre conversation, especially relatively speaking.
Yeah, it's I'm looking at strong safeties right now. Oh my God. Holy mackerel, Brendan.
But
go look at Sports Track and look at the signed strong safeties right now in the league.
Okay. Spotrac, I think, is kind of arbitrary on who they consider a strong safety and who they consider a free safety, by the way. Worth noting.
Yeah. But you go to free safety too.
Yeah. So just go to safety, period. Just do safety, period, and it just lists everyone. That's,
There we
I
go.
think, the meaningful list to look at
Yeah,
here.
that's the one. Yeah, they got them. Some guys that are either on the free or the strong
Mhm.
when you delineate by that.
Like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson got 3 years, 27. Brandon Jones got 320. Xavier Woods got 315. Kobe would probably be somewhere in that range to like 318 or so. I wouldn't
Yeah.
hate it, but I don't think we need to do it. He's not going to be that much more expensive if he has a good year.
I agree with you. I don't. That's the key there. Is I think you can get this year of cheap play from him without having to give him that contract, and it doesn't get that much more expensive if you want to sign him to the deal after this year. Say nothing of you could always franchise him, and the franchise tag on a safety is not that high of a cost because they're
Right.
not getting paid that well. So I don't think you're pressed on this one as much. He gave you a half a season of the kind of play he did. It was great play. I hope he can build on it. I love his ball skills and his ability to take away the ball. On top of being a very complete player for you from the safety position this year. But I just would like to punt this one out for one more year.
And since we both kind of feel like Woolen's going to be gone this offseason, he's, of course, not really on the table for an extension, but technically he is. And he's not going to be cheap because he puts up numbers. Whatever little you think of him, he does put up those numbers. So I can't imagine that happening.
I don't think the tackling is coming along with Woolen. I think that he's a guy that is not a bad football player. The ball skills are there and he can cover pretty well. I think that, he has some mental errors that come up at times that he's not always locked in. And, McDonald's has said this himself. So this isn't me just, hating on the guy. This is literally the coach has said this. He got suspended for the opening game, a series, I think it was against the Minnesota Vikings for some issue with the team.
Right.
I think the team would really smart. There's going to be some team out there that's going to look at his interceptions over the past 3 years and the coverage numbers with him with PFF and all that. And they're going to probably be enticed enough to give you a deal. Take the deal, sell high on the guy, and work your way off of it. You can't get enraptured by the talent that's never going to be fully realized because the guy doesn't have quite the hunger to get there. And I just don't think the Reek's got the hunger to get there. His best season as a player was his rookie year.
Yeah, absolutely. Not even close, actually.
Yeah.
It's
And
like an
that's
easy one.
that's kind of a big indicator, isn't it? I mean, when
Yeah.
that's the case, you go, you're especially when you're a physical marvel like he is, where any refinement you get down the line should just make you so much more increased and better as a player. With every bit, you should be seeing it tangibly on the field in that way, and yet instead we're seeing him taking steps back.
Be calm, see clearly. Thank you for the $5. Don't go live and not tell me. And is there a way to make Mike Dixon a lifer? Also, no, you can't have Chip Kelly. Go Hawks, go Bucks, national champs. I think Mike Dixon's getting extended this offseason. He's going to get like a 3-year or 4-year extension, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Mike Dixon, who's Mike Dixon?
I think he means the punter, Michael Dixon.
Oh, okay. There we go. I think he gets extended this offseason. Be calm. No, in the final year of his deal, there's no reason to let him go. He's been great for you. He'll be a lifer here, I'm sure. Yeah, they'll put him on a nice extension, and we'll be smart to do so. Chip, congrats to Chip, man. He's a guy that he's bounced around a lot. He's been given a lot. Those former Eagle players shade him like nobody's business. I mean, they still talk trash about him every chance that they get. And failed at Niners and really wasn't able to make it really fully go at UCLA, and then gets and really finds a home there with the Bucks, helps him get to that national title, and ran a great offense for that Ohio State team. I mean, he had a lot of different weapons to work through, but they maintained a really good balance throughout the year with the backs and the receivers and the passing, and made life easier there for the quarterback. So he did a good job. Did Chip, but he probably does stay there. He's got a good spot there.
Yeah, I think Chip and McDonald would like kill each other by week 5 or something. Because if you're a defensive player in this league, you hate Chip Kelly because he makes your life hell.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a good fit between those guys.
Kevin Mullen, thank you for the $1.99. Each give one crazy hot take for this offseason.
Would this be generality or to the team centric, Brendan?
I would imagine it would be to the team, but who knows?
Shoot, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers goes to the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, boy. Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting to me. That's exactly what that locker room needs right now.
Yeah, it is.
I like it.
That it is. And then for our Seahawks, I'll give you the crazy one for the Seahawks that they make a trade for an AJ Burrow or Trevor Lawrence this offseason. I
Which
don't
team? Which team?
Seahawks.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Now that's fun. By the way, some people were saying my microphone started cutting out. I just boosted the volume. I don't know why it went down so much, but I think we're better now.
Yeah, it's kind of had just a second. It was good it's been good through all of it. And just a minute ago, it had a little bit of the up and down thing where it would come in and
Yeah,
out.
StreamYard keeps taking over my microphone and changing my settings.
Yeah,
StreamYard, I don't appreciate that. Sorry guys, but I think we're better now.
it's good now. Yeah, you're in good shape now with it. But yeah, I'd go Kevin. Those would be my two. Is that I think Seattle does something kind of aggressive this offseason in that way. I think you could move a potential, Geno for a pick, and you got your picks, and you package a lot of picks and find one way to make a deal on this and go get your QB. Just kind of a sense I get. I don't have anything to base it on, just a complete guess.
My hot take is that people are going to really like Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner in the Superman movie this summer.
That's a tough look, man. That haircut. I know that's straight out of the comics and all that,
Yeah.
but I'm getting some just too much of the goofy Guardians vibes from the Superman initially off that trailer. And it's got me a bit nervous with this, where, it works for him on secondary characters in the Marvel universe for like Guardians of the Galaxy, but Superman's so centralized, kind of that stuff could get a little, I don't know. It's outside his comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love everything about the look at it, but I think that Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, is going to be good for him because Guy Gardner is a psychopath. And I think that James Gunn actually has an understanding of how to do that. And I'm not a huge James Gunn fan, but I think he's actually going to do good with that.
I hope so. That's for sure. I'd love to see a great Superman movie. So he's a hard character, though. We've seen a couple directors take runs at him, and he's not always the easiest to kind of land. And it seems with a Gunn that so much of what he's done in his career has been off the back of having kind of these secondary characters that he, like Guy Gardner. It's like, no, not the Green Lantern, the third most known Green Lantern in the, like he goes and finds these real obscure guys that he pits in. And so it's like, that's kind of his, and Superman's not an obscure guy, It's I don't know about like the dog. Like, I mean,
I like the fact
dog.
that Crypto, which is a terrible name for a dog right now, by the way. They changed that name. Like everybody's going to think of something else now.
I know, totally.
It was like in the first few seasons of Archer. Did you ever watch Archer?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, the secret agency was called ISIS.
Nice.
Yeah, and then after a few years, they had to change it because it made everybody start thinking about something, bad.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's an unfortunate name on that one.
Garth Knight, thank you for the member message. 26 months over on Brandon's side. Ichiro made the Hall of Fame. How many HOF Mariners now?
No, we got Randy Johnson, Griffey, Ichiro. Omar Vizquel, I think, got in, didn't he?
Yeah.
Hello?
Did Reynolds get in?
Reynolds did not get in. Not quite a good enough career to do it. Al Davis did not get in.
Yeah.
Edgar? Did Edgar get in?
Edgar's in.
So we got Edgar in.
Ricky Henderson's in, but I think that's not exactly what we're talking about here.
He played a couple of years for your Mariners there, and rest in peace to Ricky.
I love Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky loved Ricky. Who else? I think that's about all we got, actually. We don't got a lot. We don't have a very, especially when it comes to the 70s age, Phil Necro, or not Necro, but who was the spitball guy?
Gaylord Perry?
Gaylord Perry. He's in the Hall of Fame. He played for Mariners for 5 minutes at the end of his career. He's about 200, just gut flapped over the top. Spin on balls.
It's hard to make the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is the way it should be.
Should be this way. Yeah. I kind of wish basketball and football would be a bit similar and making it a little bit more exclusive. It shouldn't be the Hall of Good. It should be Hall of Great. But one thing's for sure, Ichiro and Griffey both should have been unanimous members. I'm kind of over these baseball writers that, think they're real dangerous by not voting in people that should be unanimously voted in. And I don't understand with Ichiro or Griffey how you can make any case that those guys aren't first ballot Hall of Famers. Or not first ballot, but a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famers.
Yeah, yeah. It's they're just you know what it is, right? Babe Ruth didn't get in unanimously, so these writers are like, well, if he doesn't get in unanimously, then nobody does. So
So that
there you
adds up,
go.
but then Mariano Rivera gets in
Yeah, he's the
unanimously.
one guy who was unanimous, right?
Yeah, so it's like, but then he's not. It was a closer who played 1 inning of a game at the end of games, like versus guys that play 9 innings a game out there in the field and batting. Like Mariano didn't swing a stick in his whole career playing in the AL. So like, how does that guy get a unanimous with how little was required of him versus these other guys that did so much? Ichiro's an insane fielder. Griffey's an insane fielder. They could run the base pads. Griffey's a 5-tool player. I don't. To me, that would add up, Brendan. To your point, if there wasn't a Mariano Rivera that just recently got voted in with, you
Yeah.
know,
That one I can't explain. That one surprised me. I thought for sure somebody would push back on that one.
so the same guy, for the record, who voted for Griffey to not get in, voted unanimously Mario to get in. That same guy, that
Yeah.
same voter. So, you know,
I
probably the
don't
same
get
guy
it
that didn't
either.
give Ichiro it either. Probably the same dick face that did to Ichiro.
Yeah. Let's see here. Board Skyler, thank you for the 4.99. Seattle Seahawks assistant wide receiver coach is receiver coach at Senior Bowl. Wonder how hard they will be looking at Tez. Love and appreciate you guys. Yes, I heard about this, the Senior Bowl thing. I did hear about this.
Well, it makes a lot of sense that they'd be looking at these receivers. They're going to probably need an outside guy. So, and Tez Johnson would check that box, Oregon wide receiver. So
He's tiny, but he's scrappy, man. He doesn't play his size.
yeah, he plays bigger than he is. So maybe a guy that they do take a look at. I think they'll be looking at all of them though, board for sure. And they're going to need. I think my mock had a guy taken in the third round. I think that's right around the spot second or third round where they'll be looking at a wide receiver. The only hard part being is that there's just not a lot of wide receivers in this draft. That
Have you
are
had a
earmarked.
look at Ayo Manor, the Stanford guy, yet?
Yes, I have. Hold on, let me get my notes here.
I think he's an outside guy. I could be
He
wrong, but I
is.
feel like he's an outside
No,
guy.
you're right. He is. He's 6'2", 210. So he's totally outside. Strongly built, a little bigger than average, good long catch radius, strong hands. He kind of looks just like your typical Stanford receiver, really good ball tracker, good red zone. He's going to have enough speed, kind of in that 4.4-ish time, solid route running. There's no defining feature. He kind of feels to me, Brendan, if this makes sense, like a Packer wide receiver. Does that make sense? The kind of guy that they would kind of go to.
Good, but not like over the top, and just kind of like he does his
Romeo
job.
Dobbs, right? Kind
Contavious
of,
Wicks.
yeah, Dontavius Wicks, right? Like you're like, well, look, he's there's nothing bad about him. Like there's no fatal flaw about the guy, but there's also nothing that gets you just starry eyed either into the side of just being blown away by him. It's like, he's mainly running hitches over routes and goes, and it's all very limited on that. And it's good. He makes it look good. He's very smooth, but there's just nothing that you go, well, this will be a real separator at the next level.
Let's see here. Holiest hand grenade. Thank you for the $2. I'm out on Reek. Does JS have beef with O lineman? Yeah, I'm pretty out on Reek too, for the most part. I just don't think this stuff's going to get better. And it sounds like you are too, Brandon.
Yeah, I just don't think that there's a lot of reason to believe it's going to improve. You've got hunger in this sport or you don't. I watched Devin Witherspoon and I don't have to tell Devin Witherspoon to turn it up. I don't have to tell Devin Witherspoon to play with a high amount of intensity and to play like, his life's on the line at times on that football field. With Reek, I have to do all of that. I have to get him turned up to get him to a place to being willing to play where he needs to be at. And I really just don't like doing that with a football player. You're paid millions of dollars. Motivate your damn self. That's my feeling on it. And if you can't do it, then you can go be happy to be a football player on somebody else's team where you'll make just enough plays every year to get by, to keep yourself in the league, to be keeping your name up in the right place. But I want guys that are hungry to be great. I don't want guys that are satisfied with where they are. And Reek to me feels like a guy that's very satisfied with where he sits right now as a player. John Schneider made a decision with the O-lineman a couple of years ago on this hand grenade. And that is that once the systems went to spread systems, he determined at that time that he didn't like the offensive line talent coming out in drafts, and that he was only going to take it if he begrudgingly had to, almost by necessity, and that he just doesn't have any faith in these linemen coming out being advanced along at all. I'm sure Christian Haynes is not going to help in his outlook on this, being that that's supposed to be a safe pick, and that one failed out. But he's not. That's been his transition, and it's been a very certain one that he's made throughout this time period about the direction he wants to go with this. Me and Brendan are both advocating for him to change his ways on this one, but you can't deny that these are his ways. And that he said it to you last year. He said it right out of his own mouth and then backed it up with his actions. So it does seem to be one where he's just not willing to pivot on this. He sees the talent of 2nd to 6th round all in about the same place. He doesn't see there being any differentiation between them.
Yeah, and it seems to be more about the interior than the exterior. Like the tackles, maybe he values. It's the guards and centers that he really seems like he's dug in on.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's very much true. It's mostly on that interior side, but I think he'd be well served to change his ways on this one. That's for sure.
Just for one off season,
Just one off season. Just hammer it once, and then you never have to go back here again, John. At least for another 5-6 years.
Garth Knight, thank you for the $1.99. Fellas, give me your Super Bowl matchup and winner. I don't know. I'm starting to get a funny feeling about the Eagles now. Like Jalen Hurts doesn't even have to do anything, and they're still winning games.
They've constructed themselves to be able to do it, man. It's by the thing with it is that they're not just getting by like that. This is the plan, right? This is how they set up their team to be this way. So especially when you get into the winter where Hurts' limited arm is only going to be put on further display in these kind of elements where it's like, boy, he does not throw the ball comfortably. But I do think the Eagles are going to get in because they built a great team. Roseman's an awesome general manager, and his moves worked. This past year, look what they got from Zach Bond, a guy that just scrap heap guy that come in there, give him a defensive player of the year from the linebacker position.
Oh yeah.
I think they're going to have enough to get to the Super Bowl, but I do think that there's going to be a couple of injuries that are going to hold them back in the Super Bowl. No Brandon Graham, no Nakobe Dean by the time they get to the Super Bowl. And when they take on a Buffalo Bills team at that time, I think the Bills will just have a little bit too much to be able to counter them on that other side of it. And that they'll be able, with Josh Allen back there, to make the magic happen. Bills get their first Super Bowl this year. I do believe that.
Yeah, I'll go with Eagles over Bills. I'll go with the same matchup, different outcome, I think.
Be brutal for the Bills fans. Brutal for the Bills fans. Yeah. I just think Allen would go crazy in the Super Bowl. He's going to run every which way but loose. He's not going to be turned back at all in that. He's just going to go crazy with it. And at Eagles front, they don't want to blitz. So what you'll get is those guys, it's like the Niners at times where they need their front four to generate the pressure, but that then causes those front fours to kind of get out of control, getting upfield. And then that's what opens the door for these mobile quarterbacks to get out there and beat you with their legs.
Right. I could definitely see that too, but I'm worried about their pass catchers too. I think that Philly secondary could really clamp down on their very mediocre receivers.
Quinyon Mitchell went down with an injury though.
So. I didn't know it was that serious.
Well, he was out the whole rest of the game, so I don't know if he's playing this week or not. But
okay. Well, that does change things. Actually, I'm gonna have to look into that then.
Yeah, I think he did miss. He didn't. I know for sure he missed the rest of the game, but
I'm gonna have to look into that. Okay,
where he's at injury wise on it.
Let's see.
They got him questionable right now.
Okay, it could be worse. Could be a lot better.
Did you hear anything about the Raiders this week? By the way, with the Byron Young thing.
Oh yeah, I did hear that. I don't know if I buy it. Like they have the positions on the cards as well, and the college. Like that's not a mistake that you should ever like. That mistake should be impossible to make.
It does speak to how bad the Raiders have been run, though. That it seems plausible, right? It does seem like, well, I mean, it is the Raiders. They definitely, if there's one team in the league that would have done that.
Be calm. Thank you for the $5. This is John's last year. I want to see OL improvement, and I'm done. You need a solid line to complete, or I'm going to need bail money. Go Hawks, 2026 champions. Yeah, I've said before, I'm not calling for Schneider's head right now, but I could definitely be in a place where I'm calling for his head in like 9-10 months.
Same position. Be calm. I'm in a position of I've been very patient with John, and you give him the reset 2 years ago, or what will be 2 years after we get through next year, as far as from when the Carroll was let go and he took over control. But especially if he shows this blind spot to the offensive line, this is essentially the black hole that is threatening to overtake whatever else good he does as a general manager. And he either is going to recognize it or he's going to continue to lean into it. But if he continues to lean into it like he has for the past 10 years and allow this thing to metastasize and get worse, then he will be a guy that I'm going to be advocating for to be moved next year, because I will firmly believe at that point he is incapable of building a functional offensive line, and that every year this line will be the thing to sink your team on the whole, especially your offense. And I've had enough of seeing it. So he's working his way to the last nerve. He's working his way to his last chance on this, and we'll see if he finally decides to pivot this offseason.
Right. Oh, and a little bit of breaking news that is Seahawks adjacent. Just going to go ahead and put this out there real quick for fun. Apparently, Cowboys are looking at interviewing Pete Carroll for their head coaching job now.
I thought that I thought it was just announced before I went live that they were going with Shoddy.
That's the expectation, but it seems like they pulled back at the last second on actually finalizing that.
Boy, Carroll's attached to the Raiders job. He's got the Niners talking to him about being the DC there after this, next year too. That's been one that's been spoken about, which that one blows my mind, that the Niners, boy. Yeah. You want to talk about the Niner content creators losing their stuff if Carroll became the DC.
He's been their DC before, man. He'll bring back memories of a better time, the 90s.
I guess so. I've never understood that one from Carroll's perspective, though, going to the Niners there. That one's just one that I go, oof, buddy, don't do that. I don't think the Raiders is a good spot for him, but wow, Cowboys, Carroll, Jerry. What a that's going to be a carnival.
Beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
I guess not. I guess not. So, I mean, he's, there's some stuff there, I guess, to kind of work with a little bit from Carroll's perspective, but it's a better spot than the Raiders, probably. Yeah. Not by a large amount, but.
Yeah, I hope it's Shoddy. I'm rooting for Shoddy. He seems like a good guy, and like this is probably over his head, but I want to see what happens,
How pissed do you think he's got to be? Because they had the whole mutual parting of ways thing. Remember how they wanted to be specifically not let us know that he was actually fired, that it was a mutually party. And now he finds himself with what's got to be kind of an enemy to him a little bit. If you think about it in that retrospect, is that, I didn't stay in Seattle because you couldn't keep your fingers out of my pie. And now I'm going to lose this job that I'm in line to be the number one candidate for, that you're going to now come in and snake me onto in addition to it. Are you my nemesis, Pete Carroll?
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun few days in the NFL, I think.
It will. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting, say nonetheless, of what we do with the OC position. So hopefully we get a decision on that here relatively soon.
It seems like people are feeling like it'll happen in the next day or two. So hopefully.
It's about time. I think we've done the thorough thing here, and you're at the spot now where it starts to get into that little bit of territory of like, are you guys having a real thorough plan, or you're really just kind of unsure about all the candidates that have been presented to you?
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe we wanted to interview somebody like Matt Nagy, and we can't because he's still in the coaching in the playoffs.
That's a possibility, and that's certainly something they did last year with the coaching search and how they had to run it with McDonald. So it fits still in alignment with what they've done in the past.
Pobe, thank you for the $10. Why is K9 not worth 3 years, $18 million, second lowest non-rookie running back contract? You say because of O-line, but $6 million a year isn't why O-line would be bad. Okay, injuries, I guess, then use Char more and make it 60-40 split like Lions. I mean, $6 million a year wouldn't be bad for K9, but the issue is, are you going to actually be able to get your money's worth out of him over that 3-year period with the way things are right now? I don't know. And if that's the case, then I don't want him for any price, really.
Yeah, po boy, it's this is where we come down to it, is that this has been a little bit of, this has played out and this has shown us what we thought in theory would be play out in actuality. And you drafted Kenneth Walker and you've put him behind 3 years, this offensive line, and he's not been able to be a hyper productive running back in this league behind that offensive line. He's gotten injured. I'd say the part of this too, po boy, is that being behind an offensive line that gets him beat up a lot. What did we have with Saquon Barkley? This is why I wanted to reference the Saquon Barkley, because Saquon Barkley, on top of not being anywhere near 2,000 yards with the Giants, was also a guy that was injured quite a bit with the New York Giants, wasn't he? And what has Saquon Barkley not been this year with the Eagles? Not injured. So another part of what you get with a bad offensive line that allows penetration and the running back to get hit right after the snap is he gets hit a lot. He gets his body broken down a lot. Every single year of Kenneth Walker's career, he's dealt with an injury here in Seattle. Every single year. I think he's missed some games or not at his best. So this is what we've learned with this, is that it's not that Kanon's not a good talent. It's that $6 million or whatever you're trying to sign him for, you're not going to get the productivity from him, being that you don't have the line in place. You've got to get the line in place first to then earn the right to go get a back like K9 to get the most out of him. That's what this has been proven to, in my opinion, on this po' boy and what we see in the past 3 years. It's not shown you that just get the dynamic running back and he'll overcome the piss poor offensive line. It's not worked. It doesn't work anywhere in the league where you see this trying to be played out. It didn't work with Saquon and with the Giants. I think that this has been really a hard and fast rule that's been dropped down on us now. And I say this as somebody, po' boy, that was open to John's process being right, that he was outside the box on this one, that he was zigging when everyone else was zagging, and that he was going to be proven brilliant on this. But you've not been proven brilliant 3 years down the line on this or whatever. And once that's the case, you got to pivot if your strategy is not working. And pivoting doesn't mean now you double back down to the same strategy that you ran out prior, which if you go with the 3 years, 18, you're just doubling back down on the same strategy that you just tried to run out that didn't work the last 3 years.
Yeah. Fix the offensive line, let K9 play out 2025. And if he plays well, then maybe you extend him. I still don't know if I would do it, honestly, because he's gotten injured so much already, but at least you could think about it. I definitely wouldn't do it now.
Yeah. What is the significant cost really going to go to if you did that? Like what he goes out there and runs for 1,400 yards on a season on the final year of his deal. And like I'm looking right now at running backs. So what is he going to go out there and get at that point? A Ramondre Stevenson 4-year, $36 million deal. So is the savings on the 3 to the 18 versus 4 to the 36 next year with another year of the cap increasing going to be that substantial of a savings to sign him this year? It's not, to me, the same thing, po' boy, as like the Abraham Lucas deal where I'm saving half of what that contract's really going to cost on at a $10 million clip rate. I know it would be half in theory of 18 to the third, but you also be adding a 4th year theoretically too. So, the 436 or the 3, if you took it down to 3, that'd be 324, $6 million more that you're spending on average per year if he goes out there and actually gives you the 1,400 yard season. I think that's a worthwhile enough risk cost wise that's not significantly increased by waiting, or that I don't think you save quite enough on the front end of it, I guess, po' boy, to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's see here. Hawks Zero, thank you for the $10. If Pete Carroll gets the Raiders job, do you think Gino will want to follow? And how much do you think the Hawks would get? I mean, I don't think anybody wants to play for the Raiders, regardless of who their head coach is. It's the Raiders, dude.
I think it's dependent upon the contract. The thing that I thought that would push the Gino deal to happen would be this. Gino comes back to Seattle and says, okay, I want my contract extension. John Schneider says, we don't want to sign you to a contract extension. We want to play you out on the final year of your deal. Gino's people then say, hey, I have the Las Vegas Raiders with Coach Carroll saying that they would be willing to give me the contract extension that you're not willing to pay me. I can go get my financial security right now that you're not willing to give me at this other team. That's the way I think that this deal could potentially get done. And in fact, if Carroll went to the Raiders, I think that there would actually be a very, very good chance that kind of deal would get swung.
I think it's really hard for those things to happen in reality is my thing, though. I mean,
Why?
no, I just mean you need to get all the different parties on the same page. You need to come out with a certain amount of value. You need like Gino might just be like, no, I don't want to go to the Raiders and go 4-13 and have some terrible season on some terrible team. Like, Carroll's not even an offensive coach. He's a defensive coach for the most part. So I don't know why that would be some big motivating factor for him. I don't if you were to say if the Raiders get who's the coach that they could get at this point that isn't Pete Carroll? Shoot, I don't even know.
Well, they're picking through secondhand parts right now.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
But I think as well, does Gino feel as strongly as you're talking about to the point that he wants to play out a final year of his deal versus going to the Raiders and signing a 3-year extension for $40 million per year?
Oh yeah. If we're forcing him to play out the last year of his deal, or we really want him
that's
to,
the scenario.
That's a little different.
That's the scenario I'm talking where I don't know that
Yeah.
Johns wants to sign up for a contract extension with Gino at his age going forward. I think from the Seahawks perspective, they'd like to play this out the final year of the deal of Gino. Just let it ride. But from Gino's people's perspective, we know he was pushing in training camp for an extension last year. So he thinks he's overdone now, right? He thinks he's like, okay, you waited a year past where I wanted. So it only takes the one team out there that's willing to give the extension the Hawks aren't for a trade to then get facilitated.
Okay,
I think you can
then I could see it.
Yeah.
Then okay.
I'm doing some math here for sure. I'm definitely doing some math, but I think it's kind of logical and reasonable on this one to think that this will be the way it probably goes. There's a chance Hawks could sign him to an extension too, but if that's not going to happen, then this would be the second point that it would, AB.
Yeah. Honestly, I still feel like Pete's not getting hired. I don't think anybody's going to give him a head coaching job at this point. Like, I know it's fun to talk about. I feel like it's just stuff to talk about, and it's not actually going to get punched in.
I think that helps him. What does help him is that there's just not a lot of vibrant candidates out there. Vrabel goes to the Patriots. He's off the board. Ben Johnson's gone. He's off the board. The Jaguars are now looking for a coach. The Raiders are looking for a coach. The Cowboys are looking for a coach. I mean, he just needs one of those three essentially to be. Who are the other guys he's competing with at this point?
Well, like there's somebody like Slowick, I guess, but it feels like the shine's off the apple there.
It does. Yeah. Coach Carroll and Mike McCarthy, who are you going for? I think Carroll's got more heat than a McCarthy would go into a Raiders, and the Raiders organization would sell their fan base a lot easier to Carroll than they could to McCarthy. So who else do we got? I mean, who's really out there? Doug Peterson?
Apparently, Belichick hasn't signed with the North Carolina yet. There was some talk that he could actually like come in off the top rope at the last second here.
It's possible there too. I mean, that he's a guy that maybe could come in the mix on this one. Though again, it doesn't seem like there's, at least Carroll's getting interviews. I don't even hear anybody, pushing for Belichick on that side of it either, And I think the one difference between Carroll and Belichick is I think Belichick will insist upon some player control. I don't know if that's going to be as much the case of insistence from Carroll's perspective.
Right. Garth Knight, thank you for the $4.99. Those early 90s Oakland A's teams had the most muscles per player than any baseball or football team before or since. Those dudes were action figures.
And willing to shoot each other in the butt with steroids in the locker room. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a little kind of, I mean, it's a little like the man's butt naked. You're down there by his butt shooting the shot in. Like, that's a lot of bromance there. That's a lot of, I've had a lot of friends, but I don't have any friends that I'm that close with that I'm shooting a shot in their ass, bare ass in a locker room like Jose said he did to Mark. But steroids work, man.
Clearly. Look at Arnold. Look at Arnold. He's admitted to using steroids, right?
I love when people, they love to do this with Barry Bonds too. Like people that want to have Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame, who should not be in the Hall of Fame. Where they say, dude, steroids don't give you the hand-eye coordination to hit the ball. It's like, yeah, okay. So my guy had to hit 70 home runs at 40 years old, and steroids have no helpful effect. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're correct that Barry Bonds was great before steroids, but that doesn't change the fact that steroids completely changed the latter part of his career in a way that is impossible to really comprehend.
Yes, exactly. And it does help. I think it does help. If Ken Griffey Jr. had taken steroids through his early 30s, part of what steroids helps you is recover for injury. What robbed Griffey at the end of his career was injuries. His lower legs, because he played on AstroTurf for 10 years of his career, were torn apart. His hamstrings were torn apart. If he was taking steroids, that stuff would have been resolved, and he would have been out there cranking 70 home runs right there with Bonds.
Right. Let's see here. Adam the Islandson, thank you for the $4.99. Is K9 on the trade block to maybe move up or stack picks? Sharps has shown he can be a running back one, especially if the line is constructed better. And K-Mac. I can't imagine anybody trading anything for K9. He's got no value right now, does he?
He does, and that's the hard part here, Adam, is that you're coming off his worst year, 3.7 yard per carry average, again injured for the third season in his career, third time he's been injured throughout. So there's just no value there for any team to grab. On top of you're only getting 1 year of usage out of him, essentially. You're getting one season, and then you got to decide to give him an extension or not. So outside of you doing some major trade where he's a part of a package of picks and players for some guy like a Trevor Lawrence type, for instance, there's really not going to be much of any value for him out there on that open market. It comes back around to just letting him play out that final year of his contract and then letting it ride from there.
Yeah. I see a lot of talk about like, oh, we need to trade K9. We need to cut K9. We need to do this with K9. We need to do that with K9. It's like, no, just let him play, see what happens, and let's figure this out after 2025. We don't have to burn everything down because we just have this itch to be an arsonist all of a sudden. It's okay to just chill with a player like that. Agreed.
And let's not forget about the beast mode curse that didn't strike last year, but it struck every other year prior to last year. And it's obviously, I say it jokingly, but it's kind of serious too, is that you go through your running back room like nobody's business on a yearly basis. Last year was the 1 year that it didn't happen. And so having three capable running backs in the room to start out the year, there's a good chance that we might end up going to all three of those backs if history plays out as it has so far here in recent years. So having that deep of a backfield is not a bad problem to have. That's a good thing, and you're going to probably use all those guys when it's all said and done next year.
Yeah, just let it ride. It's okay. If we don't get value for K9, then it's not the end of the world. There's so little value right now anyway.
Exactly.
Dylan Sosa, thank you for the $4.99. If we keep Dre'Mont, assuming we draft/sign an edge, does he go back to 3-tech or stay as edge depth? Also, really love Josh Simmons out of Ohio for us. We're not keeping Dre'Mont. Let's get that out of the way.
Dylan, there's a 0% chance that Dre'Mont Jones stays here. They only kept him last year as not being a fit. Mike McDonald wants a little bit bigger 3-techs in there than what Dre'Mont brings, but they only kept him as far as because really, I think number one, the cost was too much to get rid of him, but number two, they didn't find a power edge out there in free agency or the draft, so he was going to be that guy for them. But he didn't serve in that role that well. And you're going to save too much significant money by being able to move off of him. So you pivot off of Dre'Mont, you go a different direction there. Josh Simmons is really fun. He's my top rated right tackle in this draft. I do have a first round grade on him, Dylan, a guy that does have some potential to maybe kick inside into guard for you if you want to do him there. But I do think a team's probably going to draft him for being a tackle pure at the next level. He's a very complete player, and he looks very athletic out there at right tackle. I think he'll be good there.
Yeah. I like Simmons as well. I haven't looked at him as much as I've looked at other players like Wyatt Millam. Tried to figure out if he's going to be a left or a right or an inside. I don't know.
I meant left, by the way. I said right. I meant left tackle. He's a pure left. He's a pure left tackle.
Oh, you like him more than Kelvin Banks? Wow.
Josh Simmons, yes, I do. He's really hyper athletic. He's got a lot of sort of Trent Williams kind of stuff. He's modeled his game after. He's not as good as Trent, but think of it like if Trent Williams was like a blue chip kind of player that you take in the top 5 in a draft, this would be a guy that you take top 25, but be like a poor man's version of Trent.
Okay, I dig it, but yeah, I can't imagine any scenario where Dre'Mont's on the team next year. So if he was, all right,
sorry,
if he did somehow come back, I would assume that he would be kind of doing both 3-tech and edge, but he's not going to be back.
Yeah. And maybe he would do a little 3-tech if Jaron Reed were to leave, Dylan, to where then there are some more snaps to be had in there with Byron Murphy. But yeah, I just think there's no way you're probably bringing him back.
Talon Deal, thank you for the $19.99. Hey, BNBs, I'm honestly intrigued by the idea of getting Fraley and pairing him with someone like Byron Leftwich, but I think Kubiak is our realistic choice. Who's your guys' favorite of the guys we've interviewed thus far? Oh, yeah. So that's one thing that did happen in the last week we didn't talk about. We did interview with Byron Leftwich. Any thoughts on that, by the way? He has called plays before.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest success for Byron Leftwich came, and the very small amount of success that he's had came when Tom Brady was his quarterback. Right. That was Tom Brady's offense. Tom Brady was running that show. I mean, Tom Brady even took he walked in for a Bruce Arians offense and he said, we're going to turn this into a Tom Brady offense. So I don't think I give a lot of credit to Byron Leftwich. How much of what Tom Brady was doing with checks at the line of scrimmage and reading the defense prior to the snap, I think he's kind of, to me, tailing a little bit weak as a candidate here. Fraley is a guy that's got a lot of heat and a lot of great reputation out there in league circles. And I think that that's awesome. But I do think as well that we have the last 2 hires for OC grab guys that have never called plays before, and that we have had to feel the pain of their inability of calling plays and them learning the ropes and learning how to call plays and sequencing plays. And then we didn't get the payoff of either of those 2 guys going through that learning process. Now it's like, they have the construction sites. How many days since we've had an accident? It's like, how many days since we've had to reset the OC to grabbing a guy who's never called OCs before and done it. And so pairing him with a Byron Leftwich, even that would, I don't think, be a substantial addition to helping Fraley along that much. Back to, again, too many cooks in the kitchen, too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. I don't think it works when you have that many guys trying to guide and direct things in that way. Say nothing of Mike McDonald's voice, who wants to be in there as well and have his say on stuff. To me, we come back to Kubiak. He's the guy that makes the most sense. He runs the offense like the 12th man have been wanting to run it, where it's not going to be something that's just all over the place. It's got a very specific style and how it wants to run. Everybody's been wanting some of the Shanahan McVay-like tree. He gives you some of that and what he brings. He's going to run the ball and be committed to running a diverse running system. That's what everybody wants. In addition, he's got a background of having success. He elevated the cast last year with New Orleans. So he took an offense that probably should have been performing here, and he got them performing up here. I think that that's also a part that really encourages me to him, is that this is a guy that got the most out of his supporting cast. Whereas we saw with Grubb, a guy that struggled to get the most out of his all supporting cast. How do I utilize Walker? How do I utilize Charbonnet? How do I utilize both DK and JSN at the same time rather than it being one or the other? And this is a guy that I think that'll know and understand how to do that.
Yeah. Kubiak's my favorite as well. If we did the Fraley thing, it doesn't make sense to me. I said this earlier in the show. It doesn't make sense to me that he's the OC. Like, if you're going to get somebody like a Scott Turner, then Scott Turner should be the OC and Hank Fraley should be a coordinator, like the run game coordinator, because Scott Turner's called plays.
Or whatever, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Scott Turner's actually called plays. He was calling plays last year in Oakland. Vegas, excuse me.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, he called plays for other teams before. I think he was calling plays under Ron Rivera in Washington, actually. So, to me, that's clearly a better idea. I don't know why you would give play calling to Fraley when he's never done it before in that situation. But yeah, Kubiak's my favorite.
Yeah, I would say they probably do that. But that's, like you said, with stop Turner, you go, well, if we're to Turner and Fraley, then just go get Kubiak and Fraley it up if we're going to do that, and let it roll that way with it. So Kubiak's the best. He's been the best, the brightest of the guys we looked at here, and I would be very enthused if he was the hire.
Brian Myers, thank you for the $4.99. Gentlemen, will either of you be doing playoff watch-alongs on Sunday? Go Buffalo and Philly. Look forward. Are you more draft talk? Okay, I think I can piece that together. But are you doing playoff watch-alongs on Sunday?
I'll be doing it all day. So I'll be doing both games, streaming them both back to back. You'll find me over there on Sunday doing that. Yep. We had a lot of fun doing it last week. I had a good time. I like watching playoff football and watch what these teams doing. And there's always a few things that you learn along the way about stuff your team could be taking advantage of and doing too.
I might be streaming on Twitch during the games. It's not going to be a watch along, but I'll be watching the games while I'm doing stuff on Twitch.
There we go.
I'm not a big fan of doing the watch alongs for non-Seahawks games. I do it sometimes, but I like to be multitasking at the very least.
I get that. Totally do. I think in the future I'll be driving and doing a little bit more of some other outside hot content with this type of stuff when we get to regular season too at times in the future.
Garth Knight, thank you for the $4.99. Gentlemen, your thoughts on the Chiefs being favored by the officials? I don't watch enough to know, but I trust you both in your opinion. That Houston game was brutal. Like that Chiefs Texans game, that was rough.
Yeah, I'm going to be very mad for Buffalo Bills fans, Brendan. Very mad for Buffalo Bills fans if they've gone through this magical season and only to watch their season come into a close game against the Chiefs and to see it then be decided by officials' call working in the Chiefs' favor at the wrong moment in time in this game. There's been too much smoke to this fire with the Chiefs. And you can miss me with the penalties. If you look at the number of total penalties versus somebody always wants to cherry pick some bullshit ass that it's like, look, I know what my eyes are showing me when I watch a Chiefs game. I know what my eyes are showing me when I'm watching a Chiefs game in the playoffs, and they're getting the benefit of the doubt. It's work. The refs are working in their favor, and there's people that want to tell you that your eyes are lying to you, Brendan, but I don't feel like my eyes are lying to me. And would the Texans have won that game if those calls didn't happen that game? Maybe, maybe not. But Chiefs don't need the help. They're on their way to a three-peat. They don't need any help. They don't need the officials at their back. That shouldn't be something that they're being given in addition to this point. And it's kind of sucks that the NFL's done this, but I kind of feel like the NFL's done this. I feel like they get the benefit of the doubts. I think he's getting the Jordan rules calls as Mahomes right now at the quarterback position, and it's not good for the sport. The sport can't be about, I know the NFL would like you to believe, Brendan, and I think the sports like to believe that it's what's best for us to have dynasties. This is what's for the best of the popularity of the sport. I don't really buy that. I don't. And I think the best thing about football is the parity of the sport and the fact that every team thinks they've got a chance every year to go and win the Super Bowl. And when you're holding one team up in a high favor above everybody else, it just really destroys that spirit in a major way. And the NFL seems to not care on this, as we saw last week with those calls, and probably we'll see this week with these calls. But it doesn't mean it doesn't suck.
Yeah, it's getting out of hand. Like that Houston game, that I think that's the worst I've ever seen for a Chiefs game. I think that in terms of like the magnitude of the calls, like there's even stuff they didn't talk about. Like the Chiefs were offsides on that Houston missed field goal. Nobody's talking about that.
Yep. Yeah. It's the calls and the timing of them, right? That's the thing people get into is when that's why I don't like to all, well, they've technically been called for more calls than this thing to this. It's the timing of the calls. It's, oh, we just got to stop on third down. And now you gave them an automatic first. That's when you watch these games, that's the part that stands out to you. And the way the favoring comes is it's always in these big moment swings in the game. The officials come in to help them out, where it's like, man, that shifted the momentum hugely in this game. That was a major pivotal moment. Do you make that call against that team in that way so egregiously? And I've seen so many games like this with the Chiefs that have been this way. I mean, Mahomes has more interceptions called back since 2019 than any quarterback due to penalty. I mean, it's you find these kind of statistics that you can just kind of mount up on top of each other. And I was looking at one on the round table the other night. I think they're like 10-1 the penalties right now in the playoffs in recent years from Mahomes and company. Like
I think it's like they've had 0 games during this run where they've had more penalties than the other team.
Yeah,
There have been
that's right.
Something like that.
Right. Something like that. Which again, just to me, something's rotten in Denmark at that point, Brendan. We're far beyond sample size data here to where it doesn't point to, and especially when you got their dumb crap where they're pointing to Taylor Swift every time Travis Kelce touched a touchdown. You're going, okay. I see what's going on here. Okay.
I have a hot take. The Taylor Swift stuff is worth it for the memes. The memes have been great. People are so creative with that stuff. I'm like, I don't even care about the Taylor Swift stuff.
I don't care about Taylor Swift stuff. I just think that the NFL wants the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's what I think. I think that they want the Chiefs in the conference championship game, and when they want to make sure that they get there, they want their Mahomes out there. So it's like, I don't like that part of the sport. I don't like that there's this thing of the NFL organization has their player or team that they want into a spot over other teams and players. It should be everyone's got an even shot at this thing. Stop favoritism towards one team over another.
Thrill House, thank you for the $2. Anyone actually in Gino's ear about the INTs? I mean, you would assume that every player in the league is getting coached, right? So I would assume that every player is getting coached on the things they're doing suboptimally. So I would assume so.
There's been some pretty big deep dives done on regards to Gino's individual interceptions through a house and going one by one through them and what caused them. And there was definitely a collection of bad interceptions that you have a harder time to give them any excuses on. I think especially the red zone interceptions are really tough, but there are a lot of other interceptions where there's some tip passes. There's a guy hanging onto his leg as he's being dragged down to the ground and throw the ball with the Broncos game. There's context here on some of these interceptions. And when you do look at in recent years, it wasn't quite as bad as it has been this year. And then to me, really, when I go back to, what's the cause of this? Is it Gino's decision-making is so bad, or is it two other things? Number one of the worst offensive lines in the entire sport, especially in pass protection. And then number two, an offense that over the last 2 years, this last year at times, had to kind of carry the load and almost score every possession by how they had on their outlook of things. There were good games from the defense this year, but there were some of those games that were still fitting into like the Detroit Lions game where he's got to go back there and be a superhero. He's got to go back there and press. And so the combination of those two factors, the pressing, because they got to score so much, and the bad offensive line is what I think leads to these interceptions as opposed to just purely bad Gino decision-making.
Yeah. I think that Seahawks fans would be surprised at how many people who actually work in football and people who actually study this stuff are not really all that worked up about Gino's interceptions. Like, I think that they understand that Geno Smith is the same quarterback he's been for a while now. He's a guy who was going to give you about a 2% interception rate, and last year it spiked because of bad luck. Kind of like how his interception rate was lower than expected in 2022 because of good luck. I think that people who are actually working in football are able to parse through that and understand it.
Yeah. It'd be easier too if you have that line in place. You had a good offensive coordinator. If you had these games, you didn't have to feel like the offense had to score on the constant. I think it'd be easier to then go to Gino if he was throwing these interceptions to then say, hey, no, these are all on your shoulders. This has to be fixed or this can't work. But you can't eliminate those as the explanations that they are. And so they do sit more at the forefront.
Roy Froelich, thank you for the $5 Canadian. Who are your draft crushes? I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. I like Tyler Warren and I like Jamari Caldwell. Those are the two guys I'm pretty
Um,
on.
yeah, I think if a Will Campbell were to fall to you at 18, that'd be a great crush for me. I've got a blue chip grade on him. I like Booker and Donovan Jackson as guards in this draft. Malachi Starks is a lot of fun from the safety position. He'd be definitely a draft crush. Kenneth Grant, a nose tackle from Michigan, is one of my draft crushes in this draft. Those would be probably main guys. Maybe Jihad Campbell, inside linebacker for Alabama. He's my top rated inside linebacker in the draft. Certainly would be too early to take him maybe 18th, but he's got a lot of upside too. So, trade back, pick him at 25, 26 too. But he's a really good player.
I'd go Kenneth Grant as well for a draft crush. He's great.
Yeah, he's by far the best nose tackle in this draft. And by the way, I figured out we were having that talk about Tyleik Williams. PFF's off on that one. I figured this
really?
one out. Remember we had a 3-tech last year from Ohio State. You remember?
Oh, shoot, what was his name?
Michael.
Oh, the guy with like the 40 million inch arms.
Yes.
Michael Hall Jr.
Michael Hall Jr. So this is where we know what this was bothering me and I had to backtrack it. Tyleik is a nose tackle. They play wide 9 a lot with Ohio State. So PFF's marker for nose tackle is technically not it, but he's basically the nose tackle, right? By the alignment of things. Hall was your 3-tech. He's in there doing the nose stuff. So it's more the wide 9 stuff Ohio State would rock than anything else, but he is a nose tackle. Still, Grant's better.
Yeah. PFF should get on that, by the way, and figure out, like, they should not be fooled by this stuff, right? They should be able to understand the difference here. Come on, guys.
No, because if his alignment is as a 3-tech, but post snap, he's playing it like a 2-gapping nose tackle, and that he's driving into if he's aligned up as off the right guard, but then he's driving into the gap, that A gap between the center and the guard, and he's playing it like a nose tackle with 2-gapping, then yes, that should be where PFF adjusts that into. I understand that it's an alignment thing that's where you're marking that stuff, is whether they're at the nose or whether they're outside the tackle or whether they're 3-tech. But it would be better to, I think, isolate that, because there's always going to be a nose tackle in the game. You're not going to have 2 3-techs rocking on a defensive line.
Yeah, makes sense. Talon Deal, thank you for the $9.99. I called it with my guy, Edgerrin Cooper. I said, mark my words, he's going to be a superstar at the linebacker position. Wish we could have landed him. This last draft was stacked across the board. Yeah, we liked him a lot. I remember we thought he had the highest potential of any linebacker in that class.
Certainly star potential. Absolutely, Talon. To your point on that. And there was nobody it was between him and the Michigan guys who was the best inside linebacker in the draft. And that guy, though, that did have more size, probably a little bit more rangier. There was more star potential there with him. And he was awesome for the Green Bay Packers in year 1. I mean, he was really, really good for them. Great all-around player, too.
Yeah, I'm not unhappy with Tyrese Knight, though. He's been much better than expectations. Not unhappy with the way things turned out.
No, especially get that guy in the 4th round to have him kind of have that upside where he looks like a guy will be an 80 PFF guy into the future, whereas Edgerrin looks like maybe a guy would be around that 88 to 90 PFF guy from the inside linebacker position into the future. So to get that in the 4th round for a guy, what we call him, 92%, 90% of what you get from Cooper.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Feed me more. Thank you for the $2. Welp, it's Mahomes' annual playoff ankle injury equals sus.
That's right.
Those NFL painkillers are so strong. It wouldn't surprise me if Mahomes is actually getting hurt like that and then going back out there and doing that stuff.
Did you see Jalen Hurts in his interview after the game last week?
No, I must have missed
high as a kite, just high as like, we're just out there doing stuff. We're just, is what we do. He's got this real big goofy smile on his face. And you're right though. Yeah. They've got especially in the playoffs, you're going to take that stuff. You're doing the Toradol in the playoffs. That's that way that's going to work. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Probably some great stories that these players can tell us about the painkillers.
Oh, I'm guessing so. Yeah.
Be calm, see clearly. Thank you for the $5. The reason I don't care about the Chiefs ref situation is because we go through that every year with the Rams and Big Cat Dixon snubs. So I don't care. I would rather it happen to the Chiefs than the Rams, admittedly. Like, if one team has to get all the favors from the refs, better the Chiefs than the Rams. I'll admit that.
Yeah, I admit that too. I'd agree with that. And you're right, man. The Rams, that same chart that was showing the Chiefs getting all of those calls in the playoffs versus the other teams. I think the second place team right below them was
Yeah, the Rams.
the Los Angeles Rams.
And
So,
it's probably heavily favored to them at home. Like we're not even talking about playoffs. We're probably talking about like, regular season stuff as well.
agreed. Yeah. NFL's got its favorites. That's for sure.
Yeah. And the thing that really pushed it over the top is the one time the Chiefs lost a game because of a referee call. They throw this unholy fit. And like that's something that makes you hold it personally against them as a team, because normally you might just be able to say like, oh well, it's not their fault the referees favor them, the refs are just doing that, they're just playing football. But then the one time it goes against them last year with the offensive offsides thing, remember,
Mm-hmm.
like, and then they just throw this fit, and it really wears on you when stuff like that starts happening.
Yeah, their fans want to act like this stuff's not happening. It's again, you can't tell if an NFL fandom that they're watching something happen and it's directly people watch this game enough to know what they're seeing. And I don't like this game we sometimes play of where because you've got a dog in the fight and you love your Chiefs, you can't admit to seeing something that's slapping you right in the face and it's right there. I mean, you don't have to sit there and be like, this is horrible, we got to do something about it. But don't call the people crazy that are making notice of it. It's happened too often over the last few years. It's the NFL's not been like finessing this one. You know what I mean? It's been very overt in the way that they've approached this thing. And so, look, it is what it is. If you're going to be that overt about it, then fine. But don't call me crazy when I'm watching it and telling you exactly what's happening, because it is happening. And it's going to, like I said, this week, I'm going to be so upset for those Buffalo Bills fans that went through 4 Super Bowl losses in the 90s, fans that think about this. There's fans that have been there. 90s, I was born, all those losses. I've got to go 25 years before we get back to the Super Bowl potentially. Here, we're finally here. We're finally here for the opportunity. We've got the best team that we've had in that 25 years. Here we go. And now the officials pull the rug out from under you in that moment. I mean, it would make me sick for the Bills if this goes down like this week. And we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of Chiefs fans making excuses if it does happen, but I'm going to keep harping on it because, again, this is brutal to do this to fan bases. It'll be brutal to do this to a Bills fan base this week if you do this in this way. It will be an absolute. We're gonna grease the wheels so the Chiefs can get their 3rd straight Super Bowl. For you fans that have never gotten a Super Bowl in your life, 4 Super Bowl losses and waited 25 years, yeah, go back home. You're not a good enough franchise for us to put you up in that high water place. Nah, horrible.
Talon Deal, thank you for the $9.99. I called it. Well, this is wait a minute. Oh, I accidentally changed the order around on this one. So we already looked at this one. Sorry. Thank you though, Talon Deal.
Appreciate you, Talon.
And yeah, I think that's really all we got for this show. We ended up going a lot longer than I thought though. So we got through everything. Thank you everybody for all the donos. Let me check and see if we hired an offensive coordinator yet. No. The answer is no, nothing yet. So, thank you, Brandon, for doing this.
Thank you. But big shout out to me dropping the $500 donation. Absolutely unbelievable support from you guys throughout this show today, and from you, especially me, on that. I really do. We thank you guys for all you guys do for our channels on that side of it. You guys are what allows us to do what we get to do here, and it is very much appreciated.
All right, so thank you everybody for coming out. We had good attendance today, and the off season rolls on. I would be very surprised if we did not have an offensive coordinator in the next couple of days. So plenty of conversations about that coming up. Plenty of content coming up about that, Brandon. Next week, I guess we will hopefully have the OC thing to talk about. If we don't, we're probably going to have some very angry fans wondering what's taking so long. So
I would hope so. I would estimate our show next week will probably be covering the new OC and our thoughts on him, and trying to do maybe a little bit of deep dive on him, taking a look at what we've got with him at that point. But if not, we'll pivot.
All right. So thank you everybody for coming out. I will see you all later. And Brandon, again, thank you for doing this with me today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
And guys, we're getting a new coach soon, getting a new coordinator soon. Should be interesting, should be fun. Hopefully it works out. Off season heating up here. We're going to be hitting free agency soon. We're going to be digging into draft stuff soon. Stuff is happening. So don't you ever forget right now. Do not forget, go Hawks.